Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Backlog Crew. Today I'm joined with two NetNavies. We have Kurt.exe
Hello.
and then we have Joe.exe.
Hello.
All right, and you may be wondering just what exactly is a NetNavi? You know, that is an excellent question. So today let's just jump right in with our topic, and that is going to be Mega Man Battle Network. So here we go. Battle routine set, and let's execute. So, you're welcome. All right, so to give some background for this game, this is we're going to be playing Mega Man Battle Network 1. This was released in October 20th, 2001, originally for the Game Boy. The publisher for this game is Capcom.
Advance.
Yes, that too.
Right.
Good,
Okay.
good catch there. Game Boy Advance specifically.
You're good. Continue.
Yeah, so this game was in a series that ended up having 6 separate titles for the main series of Battle Network games. And during that timeline, it also had 5 standalone games that were similar to the main story, but completely separate. And then also a 3-game sub-series set in the future past the timeline and events that take place in the original 6 titles. So, yeah, it just spans a whole multitude of games, and it's very interesting to talk about for sure. So, I guess we can start by just getting familiarity with the Mega Man series, and then specifically Battle Network series. So whoever would like to go first on that?
Mega Man is not something that I've played a ton of. I beat Mega Man 2 on my brother's iPod Touch when I was in middle school.
Okay. As one does.
I did too.
I think that's the only Mega Man game I've ever beaten until now.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
I respect Mega Man.
All right, Joe?
I also played Mega Man 2 on my own iPod Touch because I was a cool kid.
No way. That's
I
why
know,
these guys became friends. That's how it happened.
I
love
played
for
Mega
Mega
Man
Man.
3 a decent bit. I played Mega Man 4 a little bit, but I have not beaten them because they're really hard. And I think I beat Mega Man X at some point in my life. But from what I understand, there's a few different series of Mega Man games. There's like the original Mega Man 1 through 11 now, I think, which are just side-scrolling platformers in 8-bit style. And there's the Mega Man X games, which are like a more advanced side-scrolling platformers,
Right.
but they're 16-bit. And there's Mega Man Battle Network, which is just totally its own thing.
Tactical
I don't know if there's
RPG,
more.
baby.
So, so did you have any experience with Battle Network specifically?
I watched the cartoon a little bit when I was a kid.
He's got the
I never
lore.
played any
Okay.
games.
I didn't know there was a cartoon. That
I did
sounds
not
awesome.
either. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now we have something to watch after we finish recording. Okay.
I had a friend who was super into Battle Network when I was a kid, and it looked cool. But I saw like the 3x3 grid kind of card-based combat, and I was like, oh, that looks really neat. And that was the only thought I've ever had about it until you said you wanted to play for Backlog Crew, and I was like, yeah, that game looked sick. Sure.
Right. So this actually is one of the games on my backlog, as well as the other ones in the series. And the reason for that is I played Mega Man Battle Network 3 as a child, and I loved every bit of the game. I played through it at least twice, I would say. So I had familiarity with the combat since it stays consistent throughout as far as I'm aware. But the bosses and the storylines are all different. So that's ultimately why I chose Battle Network 1 is because, for some reason I got 3 as a child. You just get what games you want are given, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and then I also had Mega Man Star Force Leo, which is the sub-series we talked about previously. That is the Star Force series, and there's 3 of those, and I had the one called Leo. And then I didn't really play much of the side-scroller Mega Man games. We had a few, but they're just not. They weren't my cup of tea.
You're not a platformer guy in general, like
No,
a 2D platformer.
Not really. I try out a few, but ultimately they're not my favorite, type of game.
Yeah.
But I don't mind them. And then I guess my next question was, what version did you guys play? So I looked, and there's the original Game Boy Advance version. There was a remake set only released in Japan, but there was an English port of it. And then, of course, there's the remastered version that's in the Battle Network collection.
I played the original
Nintendo
GBA
hardware software.
version.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we all played the same version, the original official Nintendo hardware software.
Official Nintendo software.
Exactly. Okay, perfect. So I guess that gets us, the background of our game. Yep, perfect. Official Nintendo controller there. So, funny enough, you were talking about the card-based strategy, and actually, while doing research for this video, I found an article that mentions that originally this Mega Man Battle Network series started out as a horror game, and it was a mix of the Mega Man franchise and a card game. And they ultimately, as they were designing and implementing the first game, the cards turned into battle chips, and they used those in the game and made alterations, and they ultimately moved forward with a different world view and from the scary style or whatever they were going with, and moved it to a more network-based society where everything goes along with, networks and technologically advanced society, stuff like that.
Huh.
But yeah,
I want the other one.
Right.
Can we play that game instead?
I want a Mega Man game that's rated
for sure, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, anyway, so that kind of gives us a background of the game. So I kind of want to know how you could make a game scary on the Game Boy Advance. That would be pretty difficult, I would say.
Well, just
Guts Man could keep his name.
Horror games on Game Boy Advance.
There you go.
We got Google AI. You really got to stop, because it's like Ghosts and Goblins parentheses 1985, and it's like, nope, that's not.
The Game Boy Advance 1985. Yeah.
Reddit
was a Resident Evil, wasn't there?
Maybe, but Metroid
Boy
Fusion. Somebody says on Reddit that one actually is like,
yeah.
I wouldn't call it a horror game, but there's definitely
suspenseful, I guess.
There's definitely scary stuff in there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The Night Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King.
Interesting. Okay.
Someone saying Backlog, The Sun Is in Your Hands, which is decidedly not a horror game, so I don't. Maybe you can't. Maybe that's why they decided not to.
That would make some sense. So, anyway, so let's jump into the game here. So basically, we're following the rise of a syndicate called WWW, and that's how our game starts. So in the year 2000X, there's rapid advance in internet technology that creates a network age. So everyone in this world carries around a portable exploration device called a PET. And basically, it's your way to connect to the network and make phone calls, receive emails. It's your 2000 cell phone, but it has a NetNavi included, which is a personal simulation program.
I love this setting. This is a very specific era of futurism, because flip phones are around and they're the new innovation, and so people are making futuristic video games and other media with that aesthetic. But then it's just super advanced with in this. I'm sure you're about to get into in this game, these avatars that can run around like a physical manifestation of the internet. But it's nowadays, if somebody was we're going to make a future game, that everything would be tablets and touchscreens or holograms. So this is just such a chunky take on futurism. I really dig the setting.
Absolutely. So we talked about our NetNavi. So we have Kurt and Joe.exes here, and that's the naming conventions of the navis in the game is the name of them .exe. But anyway, so that brings us to basically what's going on in the game is everyone has these PETs, pets, as well as a Navi. And that's how they navigate the internet or the network in the game.
Joe, can you remind us? I'm sorry, John, I keep interrupting.
You're fine.
But Joe, can you remind us what PET stands for? It's an acronym.
John said it a second ago, and it's a different acronym than what I just read. Because I read personal terminal, but P and E are capitalized, and it's P and terminal are capitalized.
Yeah, it's the worst acronym that's ever existed. Yeah. I think that's very funny.
So I'm actually reading from the. This says directly from the instruction booklet for the game.
Okay.
It calls it a portable exploration device. So it's interesting. I wonder if it changed as the Mega Man Battle Network games came out, where they changed what the acronym actually meant. But again, I'm using a Wikipedia page for this. It's a fandom-based Wikipedia page. So they claim it's from the instruction book, so who knows?
I'm on Mega Man fandom, and I'm reading the synopsis of the game, and that's where I found mine.
Yeah.
Funny enough, that's exactly where I am too. But I'm under the first game and looking at the list there. So it's funny they changed the wording within the same website.
That's so weird. Yeah, I can't. I'm looking through like 20 different sources, and they're all like, I don't know, it's one of these two.
All right.
It's so weird.
Funny enough, while we were playing the game, there was a bit of dialogue on a random NPC I was talking to, and there was a typo in it, and I just kind of laughed at myself. I was like, look at me finding a typo. So anyway, so that brings us to what's going on in this world. So basically, you require these navies to interact with the internet in this modern age in the game because as this technology has developed, so have the viruses that are going to be infecting your network connections. And so the point of the Navi is to help protect yourself in this online world. And so it's a very funny take on protecting yourself from viruses on the internet. And so that's what the Navis are for. So as the network world expanded, network crime was raging. And that's what the hacking and the computer viruses that pop up, and we have to try to delete them using our battle chips in the game. So I don't know if we wanted to use this as a time to discuss the battle chips in general, or what's your thoughts on this battle system? Because this is a very unique way of doing combat, I would say, in a game. I've not seen a game do this in a similar fashion before.
Mm-hmm. I think we should at least discuss the gameplay loop here.
Yeah, sure. Take it away.
So the way it works is you enter random encounters a la Final Fantasy, but you enter a game board that's like, it's a 3x3 grid of red tiles and a 3x3 grid of blue tiles that are smashed up right next to each other. And Mega Man is able to move around on the red tiles any place that he wants to move on, and the enemies that you encounter show up on the opposite side, on the blue tiles. And everybody is given their own set of cards. Like Mega Man has his choice of attacks that he can choose from with the various cards, and the enemies have, I assume, their own set of attacks that they can use. You're not going to see what they get though. You're able to choose a set of cards that are associated based on weapon type or letter type, or just letter rather. So you can have like two S abilities that might be different abilities, but since they're both labeled S, you can stack them and use them up in your turn. Or you can just have two like cannons, even though their letters may not match up, but because they're both cannon type, you can add them to your slot. After you pick your cards, you go into combat where you can move around the battlefield on your side of the screen and use your weapons as you want to. You're also given your Buster ability that's like a basic. So after a certain amount of time, you're able to refresh your cards after either of you use your abilities and the time runs out, and you can just continue on until you whittle down the enemy's health. Mm-hmm. Does that about sum up?
Joe, that was the best explanation for the gameplay of this game that I could imagine someone giving, and I'm very impressed you gave it off the top of your head.
Right, yeah. We didn't script that or anything.
I had to pull up a screenshot to remember
there you go.
Right of the blue side.
And so I think only one other thing that you maybe didn't mention is you have the option to ignore taking any of your chips, and it'll give you 5 extras the next time. So you can really mix and match your combo of attack, but you are limited to only 5 chips, I believe, to send out at one time.
I didn't realize that until like chapter 6.
You didn't listen in class, Joe. That's very important.
Pay attention to the very lengthy tutorial.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a lot of or the most similar system I can think of is the Final Fantasy ATB system that started in like 6, where instead of just moving in a specific order like you did in traditional RPGs, the character's speed would determine how far like a bar filled up, and once the bar filled up, they could take an action. And it's the same kind of idea here. Sorry, there's a storm at my house. I don't know if y'all heard that, but it was
you're fine. It didn't sound like a storm, but on our end, but that's fine.
Cool. Yeah. But yeah, so in this one, like Joe was talking about, there's a bar that fills up across the top. And while you're waiting for that to fill up, though, you're planning how you're going to use your attacks. You're dodging enemy attacks. You're using your Buster, which does negligible damage at the beginning. But it's really interesting and really fun. And I'm really surprised that with the onset of indie developers who are making games. I guess they're more making games in like the Game Boy Color style, but I feel like in a few years it's inevitable that we'll get some indie games that are going to have this style of combat, just because it's honestly refreshing and not really that explored.
Right. I'm all for it, so can't wait to see those indie games. All right, so jumping back into story-wise, we've covered combat a little bit there. I talked briefly about the WWW. So that is a criminal organization that they're basically just the bad guys of the computer world, and they have an agenda that they're trying to complete. And that's actually how we begin our story. We begin by the world showing, and it's a bedroom of the main character. I'm going to call him Lan, since that's how I've always said it to myself.
I mean, that's his name, I think.
Okay, good. Just making sure we're all in agreement there. Okay, good.
I'm going to call him his Christian name.
Well, I was thinking some people might say Lane. I don't know why, but Lan is how I read it, because this is a game about networks.
Yeah, it's like a pun.
Definitely.
He's the local area network, or LAN. Okay.
Yes,
and then, go ahead.
And I said, yeah, that's right.
He agrees.
Okay. So, it zooms in on the bedroom of our main character, Lan Hikari, I believe is the last name. He's an 11-year-old child, and his net navi is megaman.exe, but we're just going to go with Mega Man. So that's how we start our story. Basically, Mega Man's waking us up for school, telling us we're going to be late, and so we got to get up and get ready to go. And that just brings us into the world that's like I don't want to say top down. Is there a description
like
of how
isometric?
Okay. Yeah. So view of the world, and it's beautiful pixel art, and you just can navigate the world. But I believe you should be going straight to school, so you're not late. And that brings us to meet our mother. I'm just going to call her Mom because I don't remember her name. That's what our main character calls her, so that's what we're going to call her too, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we enter the kitchen to meet up with Mom. She gives us, I believe, some breakfast, and then, if I'm not mistaken, a repairman or something's wrong with the oven. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So there's something wrong with our oven, and the repairman's there to fix it, I believe. So
ovens throughout the neighborhood are randomly bursting into flames.
Yep.
Thank you. And so basically that's going on, and we just think nothing of it, and we just go outside, and we are met with one of our friends. Does someone want to take a guess on how to say their name?
I don't have it written down in front of me. Wasn't it like Meryl, or it was just Mail, right? The no R.
It's Mayl. I always called her Mail.
That was Mail.
Okay.
It's just the best name for a female character that I
right. Absolutely. But she meets you in front of your home. She's your neighbor and friend, and she scolds you for making her wait. And then you two both go to school together. And then you talk about the recent incidents with the ovens and suspect that it's actually a WWW plot. I think they have another name. Let me see. Is it World 3? Yes, World 3 plot.
World 3.
There we go. I'm so used to calling it WWW because that's what you type in for a website. So I have always said it.
That's just how I rate it as well.
I was reading as WWW.
Triple W. Yep.
You're going through the story. I'm going to interject.
Yeah, for sure.
Lan gets some kind of email. And he's immediately like, ooh, I have an email. Let me check it. He's a student. As a teacher, students don't check their email. So, not very realistic game.
You're saying 11-year-old students don't check their email?
I teach 18-year-old students who don't check their email. And then, also the repairman. As soon as his sprite popped up on screen, I leaned over and I typed "obviously evil repairman is obviously evil," and then I was don't want to ruin your shtick, John, but was fine. Confirmed to be true about an hour later.
Right, absolutely. So, I was about to say something that I just completely. Oh, I was going to say, what if all of your students had personal navis that yelled at them every time they got an email? Do you think that would help?
Be terrifying. I mean, they'd probably check it, but they
take care of a Tamagotchi.
Yeah, it's your Tamagotchi. Yeah, exactly.
Students would not fight cybercrime with navies. They would commit cybercrime if they had net navies.
Right, yeah. Script kiddies running around, finding the viruses
To
and
be fair,
deploying them.
I have a student email, and I can't remember the last time I checked it. Like an
Fair
active
enough.
student email.
Fair enough. All right. So anyway, so we're talking about the discussion of the potential plot having to do with the ovens all over town and all over the cities. And so, but nothing comes of that. So we just go to school, and that's where we meet up with our other friends, Dex and Yai. Basically, we just speak to our classmates for a little bit, and then we begin class. And class basically just boils down to teaching us the basics of net battling. We've already covered that. Joe giving us a very great example of that in a lot less time than the tutorial. So good job there, Joe.
Thanks.
And so basically, we just we do that, and you can choose to battle Dex and challenge him and his Navi Gutsman. Did any of you immediately just battle Dex right after learning the tutorial?
Absolutely.
All right, Joe, how did it go?
I think I either won or I reloaded a save state and then won.
There you go. Okay. I don't think anything negative happens if you lose that. You can just challenge them again. But
yeah, I think I lost him a couple times, but I ended up getting them before moving on with the story.
It's interesting that it gives you a net battle with another Navi right off the bat, right after the tutorial. Because as we've all learned, because we've already played this game, you go through so many battles to get some practice in, but you don't have that practice if you go straight from the tutorial to this fight. So it could be daunting, especially with the default chipset.
You also get better abilities from the random enemies. So yeah, it's Gutsman is much easier later on when you have better stuff.
Right, and it's funny because in the article I have pulled up, it actually mentions how bad of a battler that Dex is. So it's kind of funny to read that, and if you ever had trouble with the fight, it's like he's the worst one.
Right there.
But yeah, but it's literally right after the tutorial, so I mean it's completely understandable. But anyway, so that is that's all said and done, and we end up going home. We decide to go play on the net after we get home. And so that gives us an opportunity to go see Yai's Navi as well, named Glide. And you are to assist Glide in finding a missing program. So programs on the net are these little guys that just look nice and they're green, or there's some green and yellow ones that actually look like a normal, other Navi. But then there's the other guys that have the little antennas on their head. Yep. So basically, you're supposed to assist Glide in finding that program. And so anything so far we need to go over with the net, or how did you feel navigating the net in general? I would say, because one thing we haven't mentioned is how much of a labyrinth it can be going through all these areas of the game, and I think especially with the random encounters in the game, so that can definitely be something. So anybody want to take a crack at that?
Me getting lost in Internet Area 1 was foreshadowing for me getting lost in every other area of this game.
I'm gonna lead with a positive.
Okay. Go ahead.
Love the aesthetic of the net, and I really dig the Game Boy Advance style 3D objects that are animated just like in the background. Those are super
just spinning,
cute.
Yeah,
those are just a great time. It's a maze, and I don't mean like you'll find your way through and you're good to go. No, I mean like you have to go through the same areas over and over, and you will never remember because it's just blue lines.
Right, and sometimes they look like they intersect and they don't.
And they don't because isometrics. There's like elevation, but you can't see that. And so I'm gonna shout out to Steam user Mizu, because he posted screenshots, or I don't know, some kind of image of every single map in this game.
Oh wow.
And I didn't discover this until I was in like chapter, or like I don't know, like halfway through the game or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, this is amazing. So I would start, and I would be like, I'm lost, and I would look at the map and be like, all right, I need to turn left. And I would go left, and I get lost, and I look at the map, and it probably saved me at least 3 hours. Honestly,
Right.
it doesn't help that the Game Boy Advance screen is so small, and that the game is so zoomed in on Mega Man.
Right.
You can't really see much of the labyrinth, so it really is like taking blind turns and hoping for the best.
It's pretty
especially
interesting.
in the deeper parts of the net.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up with the screenshots and the maps and stuff. In the remake of this game that was only released in Japan, but a team got together, and modded an English version of it. But in that game, I believe I seen a screenshot of it while I was getting all my materials ready for this. The screenshot included a map in the top left corner that shows you like a mini map HUD of every area.
I think I've seen that on the bottom screen. That's just what they filled in the screen for.
For like maybe DS or something.
I think it was remake on the DS, or at least one of them. Mm-hmm. That's such a good idea. This game
that would have been super nice.
And you couldn't pause and look at a map, or if you could, I did not know that the whole time.
Right. So, but yeah, any other comments on the net as we move forward, or?
I guess you're probably going to mention this in a little bit, but the areas access different areas with like little outlet plug looking things. Yeah. And some of those are just dead ends, and some of them are actual extensions to different areas. They all look exactly the same. And there's also access ports that look the exact same thing as just normal intersections.
Right. And that is something they clear up in the later games. You can tell it in the later ones. Because I have played 3, I do know that they do end up changing it a bit design-wise, so you can make that out in the future. But yeah, I noticed that as well. It was a bit annoying. You'd come to what you thought might be a new area, but it was actually just a dead end.
Yeah.
And then
you just turn around and go through more random encounters.
And to add on to Joe's complaining, sometimes they're kind of into themselves a little too much with their like net cool guy terminology, because sometimes they'll be like, you got at random word, and you're like, I don't know what that means. And then you go to a terminal and they're like, oh, and it's like you find out it's a character's name, like this terminal belongs to that character. I was like, oh, I have that. And it's like, no, you have, I'm gonna say John. It's like, you have at John, you need /John to access this. And I'm like, what does that mean and why? I don't understand at all.
And that's a good Go ahead.
So there were times where I had to look at a guide a couple times, and I was like, I have this, and I'm just like smashing the key into the door, and it's not working. And then I realized I had at instead of /, and that was also a little frustrating with those access points.
That's a good thing to bring up, because originally when you start the game, you can't go to the other areas of the internet. You are blocked off because you don't have those accesses. And then to bring it up, there are 2 different ones, I believe, for every like main character. There's the at character name and then the / character name, and they each do they each do different things. One of them, I believe, grants you access to their local network, and then the other one grants you further access to the internet. So that's why there's that difference there, is because they do 2 different things. But basically, as you progress in the game, you'll have the opportunity to collect more of those to continue on to further areas of the internet, to even more difficult and terrible viruses to fight. So there's that distinction there. But yeah, I understand completely, especially when it doesn't really point you in the right direction for some of them either. You just kind of have to figure it out. So, but anyway, that brings us to finding that Navi and helping out Glide, who is Yai's Navi. And so once we complete that mission, we suddenly hear our mother screaming from the kitchen, and we rush in to find our ovens just up in flames, even though the repairman was there earlier in the day. Crazy. That non-suspicious repairman that came to the house.
Obviously evil repairman.
Yep. So basically, you rush in and plug in Mega Man to stop the oven from exploding and try and discover what might be causing this, with the assumption there that it is in fact the www virus. So this brings us to a first like mini level of navigating through some fire and working to extinguish certain flames so we can get further into the oven's network to find the big virus causing the issue. So, any thoughts on interacting with the environment in this way to clear your path or anything?
Obviously, the first thing you do when your oven bursts into flames is plug in your Tamagotchi
Right.
to the oven's network.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of just like electronic objects having like ports that you can jack in, like with the oven, the doghouse outside.
Mhm.
If you try to jack into that, turns out as actually like a security system disguised to look like a doghouse.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you jack into the oven, it looks totally different than the net that you were just on when you were helping Glide and Yai. And that continues to be the trend where it's almost like Pokemon gyms or Zelda dungeons, where it looks aesthetically like the situation you're in. So, you know, it's dark, metallic, everything's on fire. Yeah, I don't know. I like how it looks.
Perfect.
The idea... I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
About that. The idea of having all this random crap connected to the internet sounded so bizarre in 2006 or whenever this came out.
So futuristic.
Now we actually have like fridges and ovens and washing machines that are connected to the internet.
The Internet of Things.
And everything. Yeah, exactly.
So continuing forward, we make our way through the puzzles and clear out some of the fires so we can move forward in this area, and then eventually we end up losing contact with Mega Man during this, and we have to rush to our room to grab a water gun to douse some of the flames so we can restore our connection. So
his mom is having just the worst ideas ever. It's just running side to side. So thank goodness her 11-year-old son was there to keep the house from burning down.
Yeah, he's very calm under pressure.
Yeah.
So eventually we do restore the connection to Mega Man, and we can continue forward, and we eventually learn that there is a fire program installed on the oven, and his name is Fireman.
Ooh.
So we have to beat him to stop our house from burning down. So anyone want to talk about their experiences fighting Fireman? How many tries did it take you?
He was a lot easier than Gutsman for my first try.
Yeah, I would say I thought the fight was pretty easy too. I don't remember having any trouble with Fireman.
I don't either.
Okay.
This is John. If you wanted to tackle this in a different format, you just stop me. But did you guys encounter Fireman again later in the game?
Yeah, that's a good point. And
many times.
Do you want to explain to anybody how you may have encountered Fireman in the future?
Yeah. So the after you beat Fireman, if you go back on the net, there'll be an NPC there that's like, "Hey, be careful. There's copies of Fireman floating around, and they're super dangerous." And as far as I can tell, there's no way to know where they are. You just kind of have to wander into them, and they're usually in like dead ends on the net. But you wander into it, it'll start what seems to be a random battle, but it'll be Fireman. It'll be a slightly harder version of the boss battle that you did before, and then if you beat it, you actually get a Fireman chip.
Yep.
Card that you can add to your, I think they call them folders. Basically, if you play card games, a deck is basically what it is. And while the boss Fireman is not, crazy tough, the card for Fireman is awesome. Like, that was one of my favorite cards to use during the game.
Yeah, and that's something we actually haven't talked about is the chips themselves. So as you fight viruses and enemies, you have a chance to get their chips, and you can modify your folder from Mega Man standard attacks to more lethal attacks, I would say, more interesting attacks to really suit your playstyle. And Gutsman has a chance to drop one if you beat him. I don't know if it's the first time, but definitely in the future if you fight him again. As well as any of the other Navis, sometimes you'll just receive their chips, or you get them from defeating them. Either their first version, I think, just drops money, but their version 2 and version 3 always have a chance to drop it depending on how well you did in the combat. So
it's how well you did. That's interesting. It's such an interesting idea because with the random encounters, sometimes you just get blaster, bomb, cannon, like things that you already have. You just get new versions of them. But it's way more interesting because you'll be able to get like the enemy's abilities. So
Right.
the characters that use pickaxes to strike the ground, you get a pickaxe. The characters that shoot across the screen, you get Mega Man can shoot across the screen. And it's a really interesting way to build your deck because you learn how the enemy moves, and then you learn how to use that movement to your advantage.
Right. Absolutely. So, and then there is a limit on how many specific Navi chips you can have in your folder, but you can collect a wide array of them throughout the game, and they are definitely very helpful in making your way through. But yeah, any other comments on Fireman or anything like that before we move on?
I used Fireman and Gutsman through the entire game.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I didn't expect that. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't come back. I came back to get Fireman later in the game. I don't know if Gutsman was in my final group or not, but I used him for most of the game. Because his ability to shatter the ground, to restrict enemy movement was really helpful for some of the later enemies.
Yeah.
Right.
I had a pretty strong focus on using the Buster as opposed to like focusing on everyone. So if you used Gutsman and limited the enemy's play field, you could just blast away with the Buster. Especially if you upgrade it really high.
So funny thing about that, John, you can go to stores and they'll sell you items and they'll be like, this will increase the strength of your Buster. Well, 3 of those, nothing happened. Nothing at all happened. I was doing so little damage.
The power
And then
up?
halfway through the game, I just happened to click A on the menu that shows how much damage he does, and it's like, you want to upgrade it? And I was like, why is this an extra step? The health, because the health isn't. If you buy health,
It only
it just
is for
automatically
health.
increases your health, and the blaster power is right underneath it. And I was like, sweet, I'll buy that. I thought I had to buy like 6 or something, and then it would increase it. No, it was so frustrating for a while there at the beginning.
And the reason it has that distinction there is because there's 3 different options on how to upgrade the Buster, so that's why they give you those options. So,
Which
but
makes sense.
I understand your frustration there. So,
I don't remember if they told you that in the game,
don't
but
know
I
if they
definitely
did
just
either.
figured it out.
I certainly didn't know it.
so that would be just so funny trying to fight one of the like later bosses and your Buster powers just one damage every click.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Bad.
so that brings us to some days later. After this incident, nothing happens. So some days later, surprise, our character rushes into school in a panic after waking up late and sleeping through Mega Man trying to wake him up for school. Luckily for Lan, he gets an email from Yai, who called his name during roll call and gave it in exchange for an IOU. Realizing class already starts, he sneaks into the back undetected just in time for his teacher to introduce her new assistant teacher, Higsby. Definitely
Obviously
not.
evil. Teacher is obviously evil.
Yep, no surprises there, but for now it's just an assistant teacher. So Lan and the other students just go about their day. But eventually he returns without your teacher and issues a math drill lesson, which is actually just a www propaganda video to re-educate the students. So Dex and Gut, go ahead.
No, you're good. Dex and Gut, go ahead.
They attempt to unlock the classroom doors, but you're ultimately stuck in the classroom. And so, of course, our main character, Lan, has to step up, try to find a way to get us out of here. So we end up...
section was wild.
Yeah.
Before we get into the
You're
net
fine,
part
go
of
ahead.
this, because these are 5th graders.
Yeah.
And this man has come into this school with 5th graders and has put his little DVD into the machine, and it's literally playing like
Propaganda.
wartime propaganda re-education programming to these 5th graders. And the crazy part is it's working. It's literally just Wiley or whoever, I don't know if Wiley is actually in this or not, but it's like a voice that says, quote, "Children, study well and become good slaves to the WWW." And then if you go and talk to some of the kids that are in the school, they're like, "Yes, WWW must rule." And I'm just like, this is terrifying. Like,
It's that horror game element, they
yeah,
threw it.
exactly. I was like, this is both too fantastical and too real for me to be comfortable with right now. It's crazy.
All right. So we receive roles. Role is male's Navi, and you receive her Navi chip, and that is the one that does damage and heals you. So very helpful as we move forward with the game, especially when we're still at this low health. So we begin traversing the school network and trying to find our way through and unlock doors, and going around the school, finding clues on locked doors so we can proceed further and further into the school network to figure out what's going on. And so eventually Mega Man steps in a trap, and Lan has to go to a specific room in the school to find the computer and restart it to allow Mega Man to move forward. And that's when you bump into Higsby leaving that room. And then
and he's just like, it was me. I was evil.
I am a bad man.
Yep.
So yeah, other than like reading like a description of this, like I don't. There's not really much to go over for this area. It's just you hit a wall in the net. You have to go find a code. You give it to Mega Man, and then you can move forward. It's not really anything too crazy in this area, I'd say.
Yeah.
I thought. Oh, Joe, go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember it getting a little repetitive because I think you do that
A few
like
times,
3 or 4 times. Yeah. And you also enter I guess you can call it a mini game where you enter a wall and it's like, put in a passcode and you have a number of 1 through 99. You put in a number and it says too low. Access
Hot and cold.
Yeah.
So you just have to trial and error your way to figuring out what the passcode is. And it does that several times as well.
I liked this section, and I had to play it twice because I lost to the boss at the end, and it's not like Pokemon where you just heal up and start back where you ended up. You have to start from your last save, so learn that lesson.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it because I liked the going back and forth between Mega Man and Lan, because later in the game, for the most part, it really is just like you jack in and then Mega Man solves all the problems. Or Mega Man solves the problem, and then you have to go jack him in somewhere different. Very rarely is it Lan having to do stuff in the real world and like communicating to help Mega Man. So I really enjoyed this section because it felt like a
actual team, right?
Yeah, it felt like it was teamwork.
And so,
go ahead.
One thing I was going to say, bringing up the saving you were talking about, if you don't save, you have to go back to the last time you saved. How many times did that happen for you, and what do you think is the most progress you lost, like time-wise, for yourself because of that?
Well, I lost 40 minutes with that, but then after that, I was using the quick save feature on my Game Boy Advance.
Right, and you never let it happen again, right?
Yeah, never let it happen again.
All right.
Joe, you're shaking your head.
I don't think I have enough fingers for how many times this happened to me. It was a lot of progress. I lost like entire floors of rooms.
You gotta save, man. You gotta save more often.
I would remember to save like every 5 minutes after it would happen, and then I would forget again the next day.
Yeah,
Right.
I got set back a few times as well, and just aggravated me so much when it happened. Because, there'd be points where I'm like saving every 3 seconds, and you probably see that in my footage that I'm playing, while we're talking. You see me save every 5 minutes. Well, that's because I was tired of resetting it.
In the game where I would like enter one random encounter, and if I beat them, I would save immediately after.
Right, yeah. And especially as you get further in the game, there's these random, super difficult viruses that pop up, and they just delete you. Like it feels like there's nothing you can do.
There are some enemies that are rough.
Yeah.
But even if they don't hit that hard, their attack patterns are crazy.
Or there's some that just like they pair so well together to hit you.
Yeah.
It's just kind of impossible.
Terrible.
So, but anyway, we've talked about the high or low for the random number you have to find. And, it doesn't mean much to us now, but as we move forward, we end up finding our teacher who is locked up in a storage room, and you free her, and she tells you that, surprise, surprise, the assistant teacher that started today was the one that caused all this to happen.
That situation's
Wow.
so funny because the teacher's tied up, and you talk to her, and she's like, and in parentheses it says, Lan, help untie me. It's just like, okay. And my favorite part is you can say no and then just leave.
I'll come back to this later.
But it's still a hilarious concept.
Yeah. So no matter how many times you click no and come back later, she doesn't mention it. She just thanks you for rescuing her, and she gives you her ID card, and then
Which would not happen. Which would never. Again, I'm sorry. As a teacher, would never happen. You cannot give your kids your ID card.
Clearly, her Navi is not as strong as Mega Man. Luckily, she just taught us 4 days ago how to battle viruses, so we're experts now.
Fortunately.
So, anyway, that brings us to ultimately we're confronting the propaganda themselves. We are going to be fighting Number Man. So, any thoughts on Number Man and how that fight went for you?
I thought he was
Don't
kind of
upgrade
cool.
your Mega Buster. He's hard.
Yeah, I guess so.
I think I did end up getting killed the first time I did this fight, but after that one, like the attacks he was using, I was more prepared for them. I guess I didn't really have any trouble the second time. Like it was so much easier fight the second time. So I don't know why I had such trouble the first time. I guess this is the way it goes.
It didn't get bad until he started dropping like the bombs, basically. That if you didn't destroy them before they went off, would explode and deal like an undodgeable damage. And when I had my Mega Buster at level 1, it was just doing 1 damage every hit, and I just could not destroy them fast enough and deal any damage to him before he planted another one. So it was just a war of attrition, or not really even a war of attrition. It was me trying to destroy his bombs and slowly getting my health whittled down when I would fail to do so. But second time through, I upgraded my Mega Buster and got some good attacks, and it worked out.
Okay. So, guess that brings us to the end of that. And so after defeating Higsby and his Navi Number Man, they both promise to make amends, and they restart the server for the school network just in time for English class. Lamb was so excited for that.
Gosh, they had like a sitcom, like a 80s, 90s sitcom era ending. Like, oh man, now we have to go to English after that terrorist attack. Oh my god,
they didn't even get to go home.
Right? Yeah.
Like, could you imagine? That school would not be open for at least a week.
Right? Yeah. Locking down the server or the network. All right.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, after class and the whole school incident, Lan and Mega Man remember that the Metroline grand opening was supposed to be today. So he suggests that we go by the Scilab and pick up the program that it says Yuichiro. I don't remember who that is, but anyway, Yuichiro planned to give him. I'm so great at this. I apologize.
You're doing great.
But anyway, so we go into the Metroline and we figure out it is actually closed due to a landslide, but also that their main system's actually under attack by a virus. So the WWW is just hitting on all fronts in this area. But don't worry, our local hero Lan is on the case. So we use Mega Man to go back onto the net to investigate the issues. But we find we can't access the Metroline's network, and it's been blocked off by Dex. So we actually have to go find one of those @Dexes or the /Dex, whichever one is going to unlock more of the net for us to continue forward and progress. So we get an email from Dex who challenges us again to a net battle, and I believe this is when you are fighting version 2 of Gutsman, and Gutsman has the opportunity to drop his chip after the end of that fight. So that's where you would get his attack.
Yeah. I think this is where I died like 6 or 7 times in a row to Gutsman.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is definitely where I save stated right in front of him. I just tried repeatedly.
So you didn't have any troubles with Fireman or Number Man? Gutsman was causing problems for you?
Yeah, I remember having a lot of trouble with Gutsman.
It's kind of funny. His own attacks stop him from hitting.
Well, no.
So I was just curious. But anyway, so we go fight Gutsman again, and then using our smooth moves, we're able to take him out first try for everyone, of course. Mm-hmm. And then in exchange for winning that fight, we get the /Dex, which allows us to get to the other areas of the net further past the initial area we were already in. And then we basically go back home and we get back on the net and are basically in another labyrinth trying to hunt down the program blocking the network traffic for the rail line. And did anyone have any issues trying to hunt down this virus? Yes, I do too. I think I have probably a 20-minute video just running around trying to find it because I kept forgetting like which paths I'd gone, and so I end up back at the beginning, and I was just getting so frustrated with myself about it.
I sat here for a solid 2 hours.
For this area?
Trying to find... So Stone Man's the boss, spoilers.
Oh, no.
I sat here for a solid 2 hours just running around, and I was like, I have no idea what's happening. Everywhere I go, it just ends up in the same place. And I'm notoriously like pretty bad
at
with
navigation.
Directions.
Yeah.
Well, just directions in general, and especially like in video games where it's hard to kind of orient yourself. I just am super bad with it. So once again, I'd like to shout out to Steam user Mizu for compiling this guide of maps, because I open it and it's so helpful. Like everything's labeled. I would not have finished this game if it was not for these maps. So
we might have found the same website of maps, because I remember getting mine from a Reddit user as well.
No, this is on Steam, steamcommunity.com.
Okay, never mind. We're looking at different maps.
And yeah, I can understand the frustration with trying to find those paths, especially when every 5 steps there's a new battle to do.
Yeah, and that would completely like disorient me. About,
right.
Like, wait, where was I going? Did I don't know.
And if I'm not mistaken, unless you have the escape chip set up in your folder, you cannot leave any of these battles other than finishing them. And that's something they change in the later games. They allow you to attempt to escape the battles without the escape chip. But I did try to do that a few times as I got further in the game, and I realized it actually wasn't there. So I'm glad they made that improvement for the later games. But it definitely makes this first game a grind when you have to equip escape chips just to ignore the battles, even though you might want to collect some of the chips. Eventually it just gets tedious fighting the same thing over and over and over again when you're trying to remember where to go. So but ultimately we find Stone Man. He is at one of the dead ends of the area, one of the many dead ends of the area, and he has actually blocked the path of a large boulder or a stone, I guess, but he is a www Navi without an operator. So you have no dialogue with an operator themselves. I believe Stoneman may say something to you, but ultimately you begin a fight with him. Did anyone have any issues with this boss? I sure hope the answer is no.
Easy. Joe?
Yeah. I don't remember him.
So,
if I don't remember him, I must not have fought him many times.
He's the one that went boom, and then stones fell slowly.
So
he has lasers too, apparently.
Do what?
Apparently he has lasers. I don't remember fighting lasers.
Yeah, he does have lasers. So clearly you deleted him so quickly you never seen the lasers.
Never saw the lasers.
Good job, Joe.
The reason I assumed no one had issues with this boss fight is because he literally does not move.
Yeah, it just stands there.
So as long as you dodge his attacks, you're never gonna miss an attack. So unless you're using swords and you can't reach that far, but that just that happens.
Yeah.
When you get him as a chip later to use, he's also like one of the most promising chips. And then I don't know if it's programmed weird or if I just got super unlucky, but the idea is he drops 3 boulders randomly across your opponent's 9 tiles, and each one deals 100 damage. I'm like, that sounds awesome. That's a 1 in 3 chance of 100 damage at any given moment. It's not. It's like a 1 in 3,000 chance. It's what it seems like.
I used that one to the end of the game. I really liked that one.
I did. Yeah, I did too.
It was good for big groups, but anytime I was fighting a boss or like a single strong enemy, it would never hit. And I just eventually got frustrated and went with some later boss cards, because you only have, I think, 5 Navi chips in your deck. I went with some other ones that had guaranteed damage, even if it was potentially lower.
You gotta use Steel and Guts Man to get rid of the opponent's extra tiles, then it has less of a chance to miss.
Yeah, I get that. That's a good strategy.
So while we were talking, I actually figured out what this Yuichiro person is, this is actually your dad in the game.
Oh.
So apparently it's never brought up in the game, his first name. So I'm just going to call him
that
Dad.
Yuichiro was.
Well, they usually call him either Dad or Hikari.
Dr. Hikari or something.
Yeah, his last name.
Yeah.
So I don't know why this wiki page uses his first name, but that's fine. We'll just go with
intelligent.
Yeah, we'll just call him Dad. So anyway, we end up clearing the issue there on the net, and then we go ahead and let's see, clear the blockage, and then travel to the government complexes, which is where your dad works. He's supposed to give you a program. Mm-hmm.
The tickets for the metro are free for elementary students.
Of course.
Which is a great policy as long as you add if they are accompanied by an adult. But that is not the policy. The policy is just kids can ride trains anywhere they want for free.
And I'll point out that continues in the other games too, because 3 for a fact also has you use the metro line, and the tickets are free.
It's so annoying that it was like, oh, this is cute. I have to go to the machine and get my ticket, and then I go get on the train. You have to do that every single time, and you have to go back and forth so many times to finish this game. It should be like you get the ticket from the machine and you have it, and then you just
right.
Is that am I being picky?
I agree. You have to go to the ticket station to pick where you want to go every time. Whenever they could just do it, right where you click the button to leave. But it's more realistic, I guess.
I mean, yeah, I get that, but
realistic. So anyway, so we end up at the government complex, and there's quite a few people you can talk to. They just give you general information about the government complex. I believe this building's separated out into, let's see, a power plant, waterworks, government lab, and probably something else. Just all together. It's a big building shared by everybody.
Some carts outside with some key NPCs that you can completely miss if you don't explore that one corner.
Right. Exactly. That is true. So we go to our father's lab, but unfortunately he is not there. It's empty. You leave a message on his computer, and then as soon as you leave, he leaves you an email telling you, my bad, and that's how the day ends.
But sorry, I'm a bad father.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to bring up is you can go to random machines and stuff. We already talked about the doghouse. We talked about the oven. There's other machines you can go to just in the world that have access to the net, or they may not have access to the net, but they have local areas you can run through, and they sometimes have items in them you can collect. Sometimes even have unique items. Unique enemies, of course. You can collect special chips to really change up your playset. Or they have just navies in them you can talk to, or programs. And I just wanted to highlight one that I found in the government complex. It was at a vending machine that was listed as broken. See, there's 2 programs in there. There's the regular green navi, and then there's a supervisor navi in there, or a program in there. And so if you talk to the worker one, it says that it really needs a vacation. It keeps putting out the wrong drinks, and it just talks about how all it does is work. It wants a vacation. It wants a break. And then you go talk to the supervisor program, and it says all these new programs don't know what real work is, and all they want is breaks and blah, 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 blah. And so later on in the game, I'm just going to jump forward. There's a situation where the power is not on in the government complex. So I went to that machine to see if the program maybe changes its dialogue. It's like, yeah, I finally got a break. It does not, but I actually did go make sure to check to see if it was happy it got its break.
That's really funny.
But it just made me sad for that program because its boss was just making fun of it and calling it doesn't know back in its day it used to work twice as hard,
The dialogue in this game is surprisingly funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always good, but it's surprisingly funny. There's lots of jokes around.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if we said this, but the city that everything takes place in is called ACDC.
Yeah.
And then the neighboring city is called Den City. And I mean, Den City is hilarious. I don't care who you are. So the game is pretty funny.
Right. Yeah. For sure. But I guess we're on that topic. Did either of you find a Navi you talked to or a program that said something that stuck out to you or anything? I'm just curious. Maybe I missed one.
Nothing that I wrote down. But there was definitely, there are definitely things that I enjoyed, like different characters and programs.
Okay.
I can't think of any off the top of my head. I remember going into that vending machine, I think
Talking to that
later
one.
on, because it was like malfunctioning or something, and you had to like fix it. But I didn't remember that part in particular.
Well, that's a different one, actually. There was a malfunctioning one. There was one that was just off, and then another one.
That must be what I'm thinking of.
So, but yeah, there were quite a few vending machines there you could go into.
Mm-hmm.
Did we
so weird.
skip weekend school, or is that next?
It's next.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
you want to take it away?
So
No, I can.
So Mega Man wakes up Lan like usual, and is like, "Hey Lan, get up!" And Lan's like, "Oh no, it's Saturday." And Mega's like, "Oh yeah, but you have weekend school today."
They're making up those lost days from the terrorist attack, you know?
It's like, what do you mean weekend? Okay, sure, weekend school, and then you go to school, and your mom's like, "There's no water. Sorry, it's down." And you go to school, and the teacher's like, "Hey guys, thanks for coming to school. There's no water, so class is canceled." I was like,
All the emails they send out.
they literally 2 days ago taught a lesson, and then after the lesson, the teacher sent an email of what the lesson was. And I was like, you can't be that helpful of an emailer or that proactive of an emailer and then not just say, "Hey, school's canceled." I don't understand.
And then
it's just shenanigans.
one thing that's mentioned there, when you're walking to school with mail, she also mentions that their water's out as well, and that a student in one of the other classrooms has went missing. And you're mentioned by Yai later on in the day that they were potentially kidnapped as well. So definitely something to keep in mind as we move forward.
Definitely an 11-year-old's problems.
Absolutely, yes. And actually, it's told to you by Yai that we specifically need to be looking for this child.
Yep.
It's our responsibility. We are the police. So, but speaking of police, as we move forward, we ultimately end up at the town waterworks, which again is in the government complex, because all of the water is shut off in town everywhere, including Den City that we've talked about. Their water is also off. But speaking of police, we eventually meet an official net battler, Eugene Chaud. Hopefully I pronounced
His first
that
name
right.
is Eugene.
Yes, it is.
I didn't know that. I thought it was Chad.
Chad is bad enough. You can't have a worse first name than Chad, but he did it. If your name is Eugene and you're watching this, you're a beautiful person. You truly are.
As long as your last name's not Chaud.
Eugene Chad.
But
Speaking of terrible things, we might have skipped over the fact that the
Probably.
terrorist from last chapter is back. He
yeah.
opened up a shop in your neighborhood.
Like
forgot.
literally beside your house, he opened a
Yep.
bargain store.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I did skip over that, but in this area, or in this chapter, you have that shop open. I think this takes place a month later after those events. So he's moved on from being an assistant teacher and instead has bought and set up a battle chip shop.
Assistant terrorist, assistant teacher, store owner.
He has a heck of a resume, you know.
Russian. Yeah.
It's like a gotcha machine for chips, where
Right,
you put in 3 of your hard-earned chips and you get back a random one.
Usually
Or
they're
you can
not
put
good.
Or you can put in 10 and get back one that's usually probably good, but not necessarily one that you don't already have.
Right, you're probably just better off going to grind for some better ones somewhere else than you are with that machine, in my experience anyway. Which I don't think there's a limit on how many chips you can have. There might be, but I never hit it.
I didn't hit it. There is.
So there's no reason to get rid of them really, other than the annoying menu to
Yeah.
cycle through all your chips. But anyway, I digress on that regard. But we end up meeting the official net battler, Eugene Chaud. He is investigating what's going on at the waterworks, and basically he brushes you off and tells you to get out of the way for a real battler, policeman.
Just want to point out that Chad's also
Yes, he's also your age.
11. He's maybe 12 or 13, but he's
Right.
not an adult.
Right, yeah. This is another child investigating, apparently. That's just a requirement in ACDC and Den City. But, anyway. So he brushes us off. He's quite rude to us. So we're denied access into the waterworks to look into this issue because there's an elevator that requires a specific ID to get you in. But luckily, we have great connections. So we've already talked to our teacher and got our school ID. So now we're going to go talk to our father and get his official government ID. But
Joe,
yeah.
did you give your official government ID to an 11-year-old?
I wouldn't leave it sitting around and how it worked.
That's a good point. So we go up to our dad's office. We go up to our dad's office. He's not there, but that's okay. We take his ID anyway.
I'm sure he won't mind. It's fine.
Right. He never asks us for it back.
Never mentions it.
Yeah, you never give it back.
And it continues to work even after presumably he gets another one for the next several weeks.
They just print him another one,
I guess. And
that reminds
me.
me.
Cancel the old one though. It's like when you lose a credit card, they don't just give you another credit card and leave the other one open.
I'm gonna digress for a moment because that reminds me of an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Okay.
One of the daughters. It comes up that somebody lost their house key to their big fancy Bel-Air mansion, and she says, "Here, I have like 5 spare keys in my purse." And somebody asked her, "Why do you have 5 spare keys to your house?" She said, "Oh, I just lose them all the time, so I just have a bunch of backups in my purse."
Solid plan.
Right, absolutely. So anyway, it just reminded me of that as we were talking, so I had to bring it up. So
awesome.
Same thing with a government ID, right? You just have like 6 or 7 laying around if you need them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Yeah, that is how that works. So anyway, after we borrow our dad's ID permanently, we go to the waterworks control room where we get to an area we're not supposed to be in, and we meet Dr. Freud. And he tells us the problem lies somewhere in the pump program, prompting us to go hide out until the staff leave later in the day. We're not able to do anything at that time, so we just wait till everyone leaves because, as government employees do, once 5 o'clock hits, they go home no matter what. So
it's done.
So their day's done. The water's off, but that's okay. People don't need water. Also, we're never... I think he brings up, why are we there? He's like, oh, you should take the tour while you're here, if I'm not mistaken. It's something so strange. He's like, oh, you're in like an area a child shouldn't be in? All right, maybe you should take the tour or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, when all the employees leave, we end up going with Mega Man and sifting through the system, but ultimately we're stopped by this woman who tells us to go home. She doesn't do anything other than tell us to go home. She just leaves. And we ignore her, surprise. And we continue investigating the terrorists, as a child does. So
it's a pretty funny moment because every time you jack in, you're like, jack in, and then you do like a Super Mario jump and then freeze frames before loading screens.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And you like jump and freeze frame, and she's like, hey kid, get out of here, and then he like just drops back down to normal. It's just a funny animation with 16 pixels or whatever.
Right. So we're exploring this other local network for the waterworks. We're making our way through, the labyrinth again, fighting enemy upon enemy that wants to show up every 5 steps, and or sometimes even less than that.
Solving ice puzzles.
Oh, I forgot the ice puzzles are here. Basically, it's just like the Pokemon ice puzzles, we're all well familiar with, where once you walk on it, you're forced to just go in the direction you went, and you have to,
It's a little bit weird, though, because in the Pokemon games, you move in 4 directions.
Yeah.
So you're always going to slide north, south, east, west.
Very controllable, yeah.
But in this game, it's isometric, and so most things are on the diagonal, and you can move up and down, and they surprisingly expect you to, because there are a few ice puzzles where it's a path that's like this, and they want you to get as close to the bottom of this as you can, and then go up and slide straight up to this point. Mm-hmm. And it's just this feels like I'm breaking the solution. It's like how they made they remade Diamond and Pearl for the Switch and gave you full 3D movement, and you can just absolutely skip most of the ice puzzles, including the one that's like the super hard one in the gym. You can just go at a slight diagonal and get to the very top immediately. It felt like I was breaking the game to solve those puzzles. It was kind of weird.
It is strange.
Right. So that brings us to somewhere. Let's see. So
We eventually get to some bears.
There's a.
That's a good
and
point. Yep.
You
Go
get
ahead.
to some bears,
Go
and
ahead.
Lamb's like, "That's it. That's the program." And I was like, This is just some bears. This doesn't seem like a program though.
I fought that, and then it jumped to a cutscene. I didn't realize that was. I was like, that was it. There's no boss. What?
Cold Beer 2 and 3.
Yeah.
I think this is actually when I first opened a guide for this
Yeah.
game. First of all, I didn't know you were supposed to jack into the water cooler. That was
Come
just
on, Joe.
like
Come on, Joe.
It's a water
the
cooler.
water cooler
Clearly-
next to the elevator.
yeah.
What was that?
It's obvious.
Doesn't even look like a water cooler. It looks like a trash can.
I didn't know it was a water cooler, but John, it didn't seem like a boss because it's not the boss.
Right.
You're like-
Yeah. But we
you're like,
learned that.
"Sweet."
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, sweet, we did it, and then you go home with like nothing. Like the water's poisonous now somehow.
Yeah.
Somehow you
Realized you were
did
supposed to
that.
leave.
Right. So
I went through the dungeon again at this point.
Yeah.
So what happened there is that we make our way through the water system and we destroy that program that froze up the water system. So now the water begins pumping back out. We fixed the problem. I believe another Navi shows up at this point. I believe called Proto Man, and that is the Navi of Chod. And basically, he tells you that you're just getting in the way and to go away. And like you said, we go home. We wake up the next day and the water's now poisoned. And yeah, and we learn that by going to the school, I believe, and we see the fountain is purple, and a gentleman comes up and is like, "I'm so thirsty. What am I gonna do?" And he immediately starts drinking the water, and then gets very sick and like passes out on the ground, right?
Yep.
And then so naturally we leave him there because we pick and choose which things are our problem. That's not
Yeah,
one of
we're
Only
ours.
11. What are we supposed to do?
Right. There's nothing we can do. But you can stop and talk to another student who always is by the rabbits, no matter what day it is, and they make sure to let us know that how are the rabbits going to have water to drink.
Did you say purple fountain?
It doesn't let you say anything. He just sits there and just repeats that forever. So anyway, we get
right. You have to go all the way back
that is
to the government compound.
100% true. But if you do it out
all
of
the way
order
back
like I
to the
did,
dungeon. Yep.
if you do it out of order like I did, and you don't click the button that gives you tips on what to do next, you get to
Yup.
do it 3 times.
Yep.
So I'm not the only one that did that 3 times then. Okay.
And don't forget to examine the car by Higsby's to get the message before you go back to Waterworks.
Yeah.
That's what we didn't do. And like I keep getting the emails. It's like, this kid's missing, and I was like, boy, whew, I sure wish someone cared. I got to solve this water problem. And then it turns out that they're intrinsically connected. And I don't know. It was am I dumb for not for not. I assumed that the kid being kidnapped was something that would come up later in the story,
Right.
not something that I would need to resolve before I could finish my current objective.
Right.
Was I just being stupid in how they were framing that story to not realize I should be looking for the kid?
No,
Forgot.
I think you were pretty accurate there.
Okay, good. I feel better then.
So
Yeah.
anyway, after you do it the second time and you realize you made a mistake, you get completely sidetracked and you start talking to everyone to figure out what you're supposed to do. And you meet a street vendor that Kurt was talking about briefly that's on the right side of the government complex. And you completely ignore the water issues and the missing child to fight a new extra boss called Woodman. Does anyone want to go over Woodman?
I don't really remember Woodman. He's a chunky dude, big log of a man.
Yeah, and so his attacks, he jumps into the ground and it sends up a wooden spike that comes and
Yeah,
really
that's right.
hits you very, very much for like a third of your health is what it feels like. So don't get hit by those. And he also heals during the fight. He spawns saplings on his side of the map. And if you do not take him out fast enough, he will pick up the apples and heal for like 100 plus health or something. So
I think I remember fighting him a couple times, but I think I just hit him hard and fast and It wasn't like a wall for me or anything.
Yeah.
But this is the part of the game that introduces elements.
Yep. Go
like
ahead.
Elemental attacks and affinities. And Joe, you're better at explaining game mechanics than me. Can you explain the elemental system?
I think you just kind of imagine it like Pokemon, where you have fire is effective against wood, and I think it does double damage. There's
Yes, it does.
certain different elements that do different. I never wrote down a list or anything. I just realized that like wood is good against electric, or electric is not effective against wood. Water is good against fire. Fire is good against wood.
I think electric is good against
water.
Water, yeah. So there's only 4 elements in this game.
I think so.
Wood, electric, fire,
it's like those 4,
water.
they are kind of...
It's a circle.
Yeah.
So, yep. So thank y'all for bringing that up. But after we finish our side quests, because we don't know what we're supposed to be doing, and that is 100% justified, because you randomly go talk to this car. Yeah, that's literally how you describe it. Talk to the car, and if I'm not mistaken, you unlock the car, and a child falls out.
Yep.
And it's the son of Dr. Freud. And if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Freud is the original creator of the Navies or something like that. I don't quite remember. It did give a backstory to Dr. Freud. Maybe he's the lead guy.
He might work on them now, but I'm pretty sure you find out later in the game that Hikari, Land's grandfather, was the one who started that program.
That's right. I think this is the guy working on them now, is what it is. Yeah.
I gotcha. He's working on the water system for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, that is true. Yep. So you save him from the car. He gives you a letter to give to his father and a handle program. And we need that handle program because as we were exploring in the waterworks, there's a specific pipe that has a broken handle. So we were turning off and on water to get rid of the ice. And so that's what we needed to continue forward, was the handle program, so we can fix that broken pipe. And if you go that way, earlier on when we first went there, you would see this weird program that looks like a clown or very colorful program. You talk to it and it's like, oh, I'm just chilling. Don't mind me. So naturally we think nothing of it. Neither does the Chod, the police of the world, thinks nothing of that program. Naturally, it's a very innocent program. But now
he's also 11. So
he's also 11.
That much of him.
So we continue past this area that was blocked off before, and it gives us more ice puzzles past that in a very annoying section where you have to slide across ice to get to a certain path, and that annoyed me greatly. Anyone have any comments on the rest of this area?
Let's also reiterate that all the ice puzzles reset every time we've entered back into this waterwork system.
That is a good point. I didn't think to mention that.
Miserable.
Yeah, retrekking through this is not quick or easy.
At least 3 times. I think it sounds like we all did.
Yeah. Okay. So eventually we find, at the end of all these paths and ice puzzles, we find a Navi knocked out by Proto-Man, who is Chod's Navi. And we quickly we tell Chod and Proto-Man that guy's not the real enemy. He's just being manipulated by WWW. I don't remember, but I think he actually leaves or something. He just completely leaves the situation entirely. He's like, oh, you're right. It's someone else. This is not the real guy. I will go find the real guy now. And then just kind of leaves.
Is this where you fight him? Or is that later?
This is where you fight Iceman.
But not where you fight Proto-Man.
Right.
Okay.
So he leaves to go find the colorful Navi we seen earlier. He realized he did have the wrong guy after we talked to him. However, Iceman gets up after being defeated by Proto-Man. And we try to explain to him and his operator that, in fact, his son is okay, but they don't listen to us. They instead begin a fight with us. And so now we are fighting Iceman, who is the Navi of the father. So did anyone have any issues with the Iceman fight or any thoughts there?
remember getting frozen a lot. Having
Yeah,
to break all the stupid ice pillars that he puts up in front of you.
right. And
Like,
so
actually attack him.
that is a mechanic that was pretty unique to this fight, I believe. I don't remember any other enemy doing this, but whenever you got frozen, you would basically be like frozen, and you would have to click the buttons really fast to unfreeze so you could do anything, really hindering you there while he sets up on you.
You had to learn to like dodge the freezing attacks, and then there were abilities that would like the I forget what it was called, like Sonic Wave or something, where you would hit down and it would send like a wave that would hit, and even if the statues were there, it would hit the statues and then hit behind the statues.
Yeah.
So just attacks that would basically bypass the statues and still deal damage were very useful in this fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And so after completing that fight against Iceman, if I'm not mistaken, next we do end up getting to explain that, hey, your son is okay. And I believe he breaks down for a moment, happy that his son is okay. And basically Iceman, because he's aware of this, goes and repairs the filtration system. An alarm is raised, and we find out that the woman from before, who told us to go home, was in fact the operator or agent that was trying to sabotage the water treatment plant as well. Shocker. And however, Chad and his Navi are too late to stop her at this point, and they've stolen the Aqua program and run. So afterwards, Lane and Dr. Freud, whose son we saved, we go see the son to ensure that everything's okay, and then we promise to stop the terrorist group and prove ourselves to the police.
I want to make one quick side note.
Yeah, that's fine.
I clicked on the operator of the colorful Navi that we were talking about earlier, Miss Mad, and the wiki says that she tells people she's 23 years old, but her true age is closer to 30, comma, perhaps even over 30.
Wow, not over 30.
That's so funny. So I believe at the end of this, we actually get a cutscene of the WWW, and that's where we see for the first time the leader of WWW. But I don't know if it says his name or not, but we all know him. If you've played a Mega Man game before.
Who could imagine who the enemy in a Mega Man game would be?
I believe
every Mega Man game.
Is it Dr. Wily, right? Is it always Doctor?
I think the only Mega Man game I'm aware of where he's not the main antagonist, unless I'm mistaken, is like Mega Man Legends.
I've never heard of that one. Okay.
It's like it was Mega Man Legends or Mega Man 64, same game. It's like a 3 platformer action kind of game. And I'm pretty sure Wily's not the antagonist of that game. I could be wrong.
Okay. So, but yeah, we see a brief clip into the WWW. We see what looks like their lab or something where they're collecting the programs. And we see a meeting of some of the operators for them and talking about their grand plans and how they now have captured the Aqua program. And I believe they mentioned also having the Fire program as well. So we don't quite know at this point what they're doing. We just know they're collecting specific programs. So anyway, we're 11. We didn't actually see that as lands, so we're going to ignore that. But we have vowed to stop the WWW to prove ourselves. So anyway, that brings us to... I believe it just says sometime after the Waterworks incident, so I don't think it's ever specified how long in between these two incidents it is. But eventually, later on in the future, we receive an email from Mail that while we're doing maintenance on our homepage, we receive some mail from Roll, the Navi, and it's an invitation to go shopping in Dentown for Yai's birthday present. And so we respond to the email, and we're going to be meeting up with them at the station. But we can choose to go travel the net or, power up at the vendors that are now available on the net or try to unlock some more areas.
Or go outside and talk to the old man who lives outside of Land's house. Mm-hmm. And he'll tell you, when he finds out you're going to go spend time with Mail, he'll tell you that... I feel like that woman will cause you trouble. And I'm like,
I didn't catch that one.
What?
That's funny.
it's like, once again, 11 years old. Like, they do this. I'm gonna rant about this now. They do this a lot in this game, and it's fine. Like, kids media, the characters have more autonomy than actual children. It's fine. But it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just where I am in my, like, as an adult. It's just weird when they're like, this 11-year-old woman is, like, that's weird.
She's
That's
nothing but trouble.
that you should stay away from her. And it's like, they're 11. I don't, like, does there need to be any romance if your protagonist is 11? Like, no. I think it's the definitive answer, right?
Yeah.
Right. And
okay.
And this is something that comes up in the game, actually, is like they're 11, so like there's a back and forth between them where they're just completely oblivious to the fact that, or he's completely oblivious to the fact that she likes him, and so it comes up, especially in this chapter.
And crushes and like
it's just a little crush.
Like,
it's funny.
Yeah, crushes are fine, but like jumping all the way to the very end of the game, one of the very last lines. Lan's mom and dad are like hugging or something.
Yeah.
And Lan, we'll get to it in a second, but Lan has just had like this huge revelation that changes everything he's known about his life.
Yeah.
And then Mail just like 11-year-old walks up next to him and it's like, maybe we could learn to be like your mom and dad. And I was like, what are you talking about?
It just seems so out of left field.
Yeah, it's like, you're 11. And then all the other kids are like, yeah, Lan, maybe you could. And I was like, what's happening? Like, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have friends that everybody else had in 5th grade, but I wasn't like trying to get set up with someone for life when I was 11 years old.
Yeah, I hope not anyway. All right. So
anyway.
So we're ending up needing to go to AC/DC station to meet up with Mail, but for some reason she's late. She decides to tell you to go ahead and go to Dentown on your own.
I'm going to interrupt you one more time.
Yeah, that's fine. That's what we're here for. Go ahead.
I go all the way on, or I'm running around the town trying to figure out what to do, and Mega Man's like, you can't leave without Mail. And it's like, yeah, you're right. And I go to the house, and just like, you hear water running. It's like, so clearly she's getting ready. I need to do something in town. And I run around town for like an hour. And then I realize, like, or maybe I looked up a guy, I don't remember. It's like, oh, I have to go into the net and hand deliver to Roll that I accept this invitation.
I didn't realize you could just leave like that and not accept it.
I was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Let me go meet her at the station. And I left, and eventually I was like, oh my, I have to go.
I missed a step.
Yeah, I feel like the game does this sometimes, where it's like, all right, here's what you're gonna do. It's like, sweet. And it's like, did you do the 3 other things before you can do that? It's like, what 3 other things? Like, we're not gonna tell you. It's like, what do you
figure it out?
There's a part later where the next section when the power goes off, and when it comes back on, and you got to go save the day or whatever. But you can't get the story event that needs to happen that allows you to start saving the day until you talk to one specific random NPC, and literally all he's doing is like creeping on your mom. He's just like, boy howdy, you're one lucky boy to have a mom like that. and then story cutscene, completely unrelated to what he had to say. And that happens at multiple points throughout this game, where you just have to do a random thing that's not the specific objective that they set forth for you before you can actually carry out. And that's probably that. Anyway, I'm complaining about that.
No, you're
Other
fine.
stuff in this
You're
game's
fine.
really cool. That's a complaint. John, I will not interrupt you again.
No, you're fine. That gives me a chance to make sure I'm staying on topic with how things happen with the game. So that's perfect. Gives me time to think. So as we go and are told to just go ahead and go to the town on our own, Dentown, we get an email from Dr. Freud, who we just helped before with his son. And he signs us up for the official Net Battler mailing list. Normally it would be people like Chad who get this email, but he has connections for us, and now we have these connections. So we're just getting these emails now as we progress.
They're just spam.
Yeah, basically it was just spam.
It's spam.
They they're basically just talking about information we already have. Like
They're like tips and tricks for the game.
I think the first ones are about the element system and
tutorials.
how you do extra damage and stuff like that at this point, and then they progress further as the game goes on.
It eventually just turns into like drip feeding you exposition.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's literally just reading exposition.
Right.
Yeah.
So as we go through Dentown, basically this is just, I think, 4 different city blocks. So this area is basically just streets, and you stay on the sidewalk, and you have to wait for your crossing paths to open up, and you can walk around and traverse the city. There's a few different buildings you can go to. One of note is another school, and then the teacher is the twin sister of your teacher. But you go around all these, and then eventually you get an email, I believe, from Mail that tells you, hey, that Yai is interested in antiques. So you're looking for an antique shop, if I'm not mistaken. And in that antique shop, you can talk to the shopkeeper who has a Navi you can battle called Skullman. And Skullman
Hardest
has...
fight in the game.
Really? Yeah,
Hardest
I think
fight in the game.
that first fight definitely was hard for me. I think I died maybe once or twice.
Hardest fight in the game.
I believe his arms are scythes, and they go to your side of the map and just spin in place, and then they move around too, right?
Mm-hmm. They do. They chase you. They're like homing.
Yeah. So, pretty difficult fight there. But anything else about Skullman?
He's a pretty good like Navi to have in your party because it's like
I don't think I used that one. What did it do?
it's like Stone Man, except it automatically hits the enemy. So it deals like 100 or 120 damage or something, and it just what it does is it drops the giant skull on them, and it automatically, as long as your enemy is like on one of its platforms, it automatically hits them.
All right.
So it was much better for bosses.
I think I did use it a little at the end now that you mentioned the skull dropping, but I think at this point in the game it wasn't using the letter that all of my other chips were, so I didn't end up using it until later on.
Yeah, I had a lot,
I
had a lot of S's.
Yeah,
so.
At the end of the game, I think S was one of my main chip letters, but at this point I was using a lot of A and B and C since those were the more standard chips, but moved on to more diverse movesets as I got into the game. But anyway, we take that quick break to do that fight. I don't even remember why you're in that antique shop if you're ever given the option to buy any antiques.
Well,
I don't think it ever comes up.
Well, Mail asks you to find it because she's running late.
Yeah.
And while you're there, you battle, and then by beating her, or maybe just talking to her, I don't know, something to do in the antique shop, you end up getting like an @ or a / for that character that will help you progress in the future.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, you just find the antique shop. You don't actually buy anything at this point.
Yeah, you don't do anything there. You just kind of go there. And then I believe you receive another email from Mail on a location to meet up. And after you're done in the antique shop, if I'm not mistaken. So you leave there and try to go to the scheduled meeting up spot. But as you leave, all of the traffic lights turn green. And you see these cars crashing into each other.
They freaking obliterate each other. Like, it's 2 cars, and then there's an explosion effect, and then there's nothing there anymore. It's just an empty street.
So
Lance just like, oh no, man.
And so
like, looks like a problem for me.
I was wondering why they didn't stop, and it turns out when you talk to some of the NPCs and stuff in this area, they tell you that it's an automated traffic system that uses programs and such to drive, so there's no manual user intervention. So because they read the lights as green, they always crash into each other. Yeah. So
it happens.
If I remember right.
Oh, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
I was going to say, if I remember right, the cars keep coming too.
Yes,
so
they don't
just stand
stop.
there. People keep dying.
Yeah,
it
the whole time. Yeah,
a lot.
So we try to make our way through this area as this is happening. I believe you're having to use the tunnels now to navigate, which they're very convenient tunnels if you don't want to wait on the traffic things to open up for you to walk across. But eventually, as you traverse through the area to get to where you need to go, which was the meeting spot, you get an email from the WWW, who are actually selling a fix to the automated cars for 1 million in-game money, which is called Zenny.
Is that what it's called in Dragon Ball? Is that true?
Yep.
Oh,
That's
I did not
hilarious.
know that. Okay, I've
That's
not
really
played a
funny
Dragon
to
Ball
me.
Z
It was
game or
funny.
anything.
That's got to mean something.
I'm interested to know if that means anything.
It,
Brilliant business model. You know?
But
the name Zinni is a girl name of Arabic origin meaning imagine, or more likely, Zinni is a Japanese word referring to a round coin with a square hole in the center. It's probably that one,
probably
but it
that
could
one.
be
This is a Japanese game. Yeah.
could be either.
So, but after you get this email, I believe you end up going through a main area of town, and you run into the woman from before, and she's selling the program to fix it to like a group of people who are all lined up to meet her and buy it. And using your 11-year-old persuasion skills, you convince these people to alter their whole life path and save 1 million zenny each by telling them to not do that. And
Individually tell every
Yeah.
single one of them, hey,
While,
don't do that. And they're like,
while
You're right.
she's just standing
And then they walk
there
away.
watching you ruin her sales pitch.
yeah.
And so to get you back for that, if I'm not mistaken, eventually she basically kidnaps an entire bus full of people, right?
Yeah, Mel's on the bus, and she's like, "I'm gonna explode the person you care about most," and it's like they're 11.
Yeah.
They're
It's
11.
so yeah, she kidnaps your best friend. Well, one of your friends that she has a crush on you apparently. But so basically, your job is to go into each of the traffic lights and try to get the bus to stop. And so basically, this
Real
just
quick,
becomes yep.
You have to get the bus to stop because the evil lady tells you,
Oh yeah.
and I quote, "The virus makes the gas go backwards, and then it's boom time."
Forgot about that. That's exactly what it said. It says,
Word for word, makes the gas go backwards, and then it's boom time. This
It's
is
so-
They're
World
still gas
free, evil
powered.
terrorists.
I know, right?
It's so easy to understand when she puts it like that even an 11-year-old can figure it out.
Yeah.
So that brings us to now we have to go around the different blocks of the city and jack into specific traffic lights. And I think there's a many number of traffic lights you have to do this to. There's like 4 or 5.
Yep.
You have to go to each one and solve a puzzle that basically has on and off switches for roads. To go walk through an orb that shuts off a red path that turns on the blue path. So you can navigate the labyrinth again for 4 or 5 times to shut off each of the traffic lights.
I didn't enjoy this part.
I didn't
like
either.
this part.
I didn't
I
like
was-
the mazes.
I was staring at the maps, but I enjoyed this part.
On top of the fact, I didn't know which area we were supposed to be going to, so I would just be like
Yeah, it doesn't-
leaving the area until Mega Man stopped telling me,
You-
no, you need to go the other way.
You didn't talk to the NPC who explains how the city
No.
is laid out, and then remember and then navigate it correctly.
Yeah, why didn't
No,
you
I-
do
I
that, Joe?
don't.
There really is. There's one guy. He's like, there are 4 main districts to Den City. It's the name of the town, by the way. And here's how they're laid out. So if you go this way, it goes here and this way. And the Mega Man's like, all right, we got to get to 3rd district or whatever.
Can't believe
they
you
call
didn't
it.
write that down, Joe.
And then I'm running into District 2, and Mega Man's like, no, the other way.
So, and during this whole thing, by the way, you're getting emailed by your friend Mail telling you how distressed her situation is and that you need to hurry up and save her. And then every time you fix it, she's like, you weren't fast enough. I've already moved on.
It is really funny because every time you the bus is just like driving randomly around all around town. Thankfully, not running into any cars. But you're like, all right, got it. And then the bus drives by, and you're like, no.
So, but we do this about 5 times, I think. And then eventually we fortunately perfectly time shutting off specific lights to trap the bus. And at this point, you trap the bus in an intersection, and then you are given the note that it's okay, I'm just going to blow up the bus anyway. And so you have to go in and fight. What's the name of this one?
Color Man.
Color Man. Yeah. Yes, this is the very innocent Navi from last time that we didn't think nothing about. Well, now we're gonna fight it because they're trying to blow up one of our friends. So yeah, thoughts on Color Man?
This is the second most annoying boss in the game.
It is, especially whenever you have large attacks that have to go tile at a time, like the Aqua Tower attack or the Fire Tower attacks, because
Like
Color Man
50% of my deck at this point.
because Color Man has these two red and blue, basically punching bags that move up and down the tiles in front of him that block your attacks, and so it really makes it annoying to do some damage there.
Yeah.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, he has Aqua Tower himself. So you get hit by that. You're trying to hit him with it. It just doesn't happen. And then he has fire as well. So, yeah, it's just a lot of annoyance there.
Again, this is why you have Guts Man to block off the little punching bag guys.
That is true. I did not
You can
use
just wail on Color Man since you've upgraded your Buster, and you realized in this chapter that you can charge your Buster.
I never upgraded charge, so I never did charge my Buster.
I upgraded it once, but I want to say all it does is make it charge faster because you're still doing a lot of damage if you just upgrade the attack and use the charge.
Oh, I tried holding the button one time, it didn't work. I was like, I guess I don't have it, so I just would jam. Like, how much would you do with a charge blast?
By the end of the game, I was doing like 80 or 100 damage.
Yeah, I was doing 60.
Just the charger.
Well, no wonder the last two bosses were so hard, because I'm just sitting there jamming on the button, doing like 4 or 5 damage every single hit.
Yeah.
So, bringing it back to the boss fight, we had no issues with that one, clearly.
Nope, he sucks.
One thing I didn't mention, though, is the fact that we stopped the bus, but she's going to explode it anyway. But Roll, Male's Navi, ends up stopping that detonation so we can do the boss fight. So they actually, in a way, save themselves, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
So using that team up, we were able to save the day and keep our friend from exploding. And then I believe at the end there's a cutscene where she thanks you, and then there's the awkward like, I kind of like you, but I'm not going to say it. And then he goes, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. And then the two Navis go, he's so clueless. Yes, he is. I think
they buy an antique guy.
Yeah, and then they get the antique that they went there for. And then there's another cutscene at the WWW. I don't remember what this one covered, but I believe you see additional operators and their discussions of their plans.
They probably got a thing or something.
Yeah, they were. I think you find at this point that they're collecting I forget what they call them, but like super programs to be used to make the life virus, but you don't know what any of that means.
Yeah,
at this point.
That sounds right.
And then while John handles something super important, the next thing I think it just fades to black and you wake up and you're like, your mom's like, hey, your dad invited us to go eat at a special banquet at the lab. Let's go meet your dad. Joe, guess what happens when you go to meet your dad?
Nothing, because everything is entirely fine.
He completely flakes on you and you don't actually get to meet your dad. So far.
Wait,
he
shows up. He shows up to the restaurant, right?
I don't think so. I think
he shows up at the restaurant and then he's like, this call, runs away.
He's like, hello, Lan. Gotta take this, and then leaves. That's what he does. You're right. He does show up, and then he just immediately flakes.
And then there's one comment by him. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that was it.
He just makes a comment. He's like, oh, and there goes Dad again.
He's like, oh, darn. It's like, no, that's your dad. Like, you haven't seen him in what seems like months at this point.
Right, yeah.
I think this is when Lan's mom finally mentioned something about how she never gets to see him, and you start to realize, like, oh,
right.
Maybe this is a really dysfunctional family.
Yeah, but the mom's, like, super chill.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, your dad sure does work hard. We almost never get to see him. And it's like, that's not the attitude that you should have about your family. It's like, oh, She
might just be putting on a strong face for Lan, but she's actually revealing that she's deeply hurt by it.
Oh, man, we're reading into the dark undertones of the dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could be fine. I don't know.
So yeah, I guess, does anyone want to keep going with the plot of this one and going over what we do?
Well, the... I don't know. 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 I other villain from the meeting cutscenes with Dr. Wily and them shows up, and I don't remember the specifics.
He's a very yellow man.
Yeah, he's very yellow, and he's like, "You're all gonna die because I'm gonna turn off the power, and this is the basement. So the only way that air gets into the basement is for the air systems to electronically pump air down here."
Isn't it an underwater restaurant as well?
I don't know. It's next to the waterworks. I don't know, but
it's very sure it's underwater. Yeah.
So the premise. Okay, so the premise is like, he turns the electricity off. Without electricity, people don't have oxygen.
Right.
And then he bails, and Lamb's like, "Guess I better fix this," even though you're literally like surrounded by people who work for this company.
Right. I'm sure your dad's on the case right now. That's why he got called up to the lab, you know?
It's like, "Hey, terrorist attack's about to happen. Can you come up?" So, "Yeah, sure. Let me just say bye to my family."
I like how they cut off the power, and then the entire screen goes black, and it's like, oh no, it's a blackout. And Lan's like, oh no, I can't see anything. And then 3 seconds later, you can just vaguely see it, and Lan's like, my eyes adjusted. Yeah. And it's totally fine.
It's totally fine. It's like slightly darker. There's also one NPC in the section who's just like
Chawed.
No, it's not Chawed. She's at the dinner. She's basically like, "I snuck in here for free food."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "I'm gonna die." It's like, "Oh no, I'm sorry, girl. You don't deserve this."
That was so out of pocket and funny, though.
Oh, like the dialogue in this game is kind of funny when it's trying to be funny. It's just when it's trying to be serious that it doesn't really work.
Right.
Quick side note: did any of you guys fight Sharkman before this happened?
Is that right now? Yes, I did fight Sharkman before this.
What is Shark? I gotta look up Sharkman.
Go ahead, Joe.
Sharkman. Tell us. I tried to fight Sharkman so many times, and he murdered me for like an hour straight.
So tell us, how do you find Sharkman? Where is Sharkman?
He's up next to Sal, which I think this is when I started opening the wiki, and the game was like, "Go fight Sal," and I was like, "Who in the world is Sal?"
Sal is.
I had to Google it, and I was like, "Who is this green-haired chick?"
Is Woodman's operator, and so there's a new vendor that shows up there to sell fish, and his Navi is Sharkman.
Oh, I saw that guy show up, but I didn't like talk to him. By the way, when you Google Sharkman, there's also a 2001 movie called Sharkman. It has a 2.3 out of 10 on IMDb.
Nice.
Yeah, the prequel to Sharknado. I forgot.
The only ones I know of are Turtle Man and Crab Man. So
it's yeah. Anyway, sorry, off topic, but go watch Sharkman, I guess.
Yeah. So bringing that up, Joe, you said you spent a good hour trying to beat Sharkman.
Might not have actually been an hour, but I fought him a lot.
Do you want to tell us why that was so difficult?
So he has little shark fins that are on each of his columns that move up and down, all of them individually, constantly. And you just have to, like, try and shoot each one individually until you find out which one Sharkman is going to pop out of. But while this is happening, if you're on the same row as any of these three fins, they charge at you and just destroy your health. And this is happening constantly. If you do manage to get Sharkman to pop up by shooting the right fin, he'll pop up and he'll do like the water column attack that also covers 3 of the blocks on your side of the screen, and that's your only chance to shoot him because he'll pop back down, shuffle the fins, and just rinse and repeat that whole thing. The guide told me to fight him for an HP memory, and I sure did fight him a lot for an HP memory. And then right after this chapter, the guide's like, "Go fight Sharkman again." And I'm like, "Oh my god,
another one."
No. Yeah.
But the reason you go back and fight him again is he has a very powerful attack that the chip sends 3 shark fins across the map, so it hits every single thing on the map for 90 damage.
Definitely didn't fight him again.
So
maybe I should have. I definitely didn't do that again.
I didn't fight this guy at all. Sounds tough, Joe, but I just watched a guy on YouTube beat him in 50 seconds. So I think...
Wow.
You should go load up your hard mode save and fight him.
Alright, I'll go do that.
Okay.
So that was just for extra HP? Like, that was just an optional boss?
And then the chip later on if you want to fight him again, yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that the game had optional bosses like that. I knew there was some
I-
in-game stuff.
Well,
Speaking of
basically,
side bosses,
basically every boss has an optional one with it. So, for example, Gutsman was the optional.
Sure, I guess there
Woodman,
is Guts Man.
Skull Man, and then Shark Man at this point.
But
Those
don't
were
you
all
have
optionals.
Don't you have to beat Skullman and Woodman to get the access on the net?
I ain't gonna
Those
lie.
are
I
just
don't
shortcuts, I
fight Skull Man.
believe. But I don't
Guess
know.
Oh, really?
Here we go. No, I didn't fight him or jack into the magnifying glass that you're supposed to do.
Okay, well,
Oh, okay.
I thought they were
Mine is.
optional, but I didn't know for sure.
They probably are, and I just don't understand how any of the systems
Well, hey.
can actually work.
Maybe they didn't either. So,
They just-
yeah. So, does anyone want to continue forward now that we've beaten Sharkman, of course? Anybody got anything else they did?
My notes are sparse, but basically, you manage to get through the door, even though the power's out and the doors are electronic. Don't really remember how that. I think it just kind of happens.
Oh wait, yeah, we
So-
went down like a garbage chute or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, you go down
To
to
get out,
garbage chute.
Yeah, we go down to a lower level, and you're supposed to talk to specifically the first guy you see, and then the second guy you see, and then you go back and talk to the first guy you see, and the second guy's door will be open.
Yeah, it's so counterintuitive
Oh
and
my
confusing.
gosh.
That's how you're supposed to do that. I ran back and forth through this hallway for a solid 5 or 10 minutes.
Mhm.
And that's
Or
like, I
what you're
just
supposed to do.
don't understand this game. That's like early NES style game
Yeah.
design where it's just supposed to be obtuse, so it'll take you longer to do it.
Yeah.
But this was a decade or 2 decades later, and I truly don't understand
Yeah.
why some of those decisions were made.
I think at that point we get the control door open, and I think we enter the net from that point.
Yes, we enter the power plant's local network. And this is
the one with the invisible floors.
Yes. So have we not had enough troubles? Now we're in an area that is a labyrinth again, but now the floors are mostly invisible. And to top it all off, you also have a battery for this area in the top right corner because your PET requires charge, and with no power, you eventually will not heal when you run out of battery. So to top
Which
it
is
all
a death
off.
sentence.
Yes.
Because I almost died in every single encounter.
So yeah, I saved a whole lot in this area, and if something was a waste of time, I went back and fixed it.
So the maps at this point that I was using, because again, I'm just horrible with directions, didn't feel like getting lost, actually have the invisible roads highlighted.
Oh, that sounds
So what-
very helpful.
What was it like exploring this without knowing where the roads were?
Oh, I did not do that. I pulled up the guide and I had it side by side next to my Game Boy.
John, please
I had-
enlighten us.
I had a guide for this part too because I was
Okay.
on a time crunch. I haven't brought this up, but I was on a time crunch
Sure.
to finish it this week. So specifically this area, I definitely used a guide. But my guide didn't have the paths. It was basically a screenshot that said, go northeast, go southwest, go, like that. So,
Right.
so that's what I ended up doing. Just because if not, I would have spent probably over double the time here. And then I honestly don't know what happens when you put the batteries in the wrong place to open up these paths because I just put them in correctly. Like it put them in correctly as it stated in the guide I was following.
Okay.
But I think it just wastes your battery because there's no indicator in these maps where to place the batteries. It'll give you only a few batteries, but there'll be multiple locations to put them. And if you don't do it right, I don't know what happens, but I feel like it just wastes more time to have to recharge those batteries.
I think that's all it does. If you put them in the wrong spot, just nothing happens and it wastes the battery. So you have to take them out and go back to the guy to recharge the batteries. And then you just come back and try to put them in the right spots.
And sometimes those were not even close to where you had to use the batteries. So you would have to remember the path, the invisible path, backtrack, do it, and then come back. So
They could be 4 random encounters away.
right, or more, or 20,
Yeah.
or 50, or 100.
So I just put them in the right spot.
Yeah. So I'm not even gonna lie about it. I did use a guide for this area because it would have been just super tedious for no reason.
See, guys, John is just as bad as us.
I used a guide as well, and I'm found a Reddit thread that's like, how do you figure out this battery puzzles? And literally every comment's just like, man, I don't know, just read this, and they're just all linked to one website that apparently just
Everyone
tells you
knows.
the answers.
Like, comment, and subscribe if you used a guide to get through the power plant.
There you go. Thank you.
That's
Joe did the
funny.
plug this time, so I didn't have to.
Good job, Joe.
So we make our way through these paths, the labyrinth, literal labyrinth in this case, and eventually we come across these corrupted programs or altered
They're so
programs.
sad.
And yeah, you can take them out to put them out of their misery. Sadly, that's the only thing you can do for them. And I thought their attacks were pretty interesting, but when I started using them, I figured out they're pretty lackluster. So I didn't even end up using their attack either. So
Yeah. Which is a shame because they do big damage. They just
Mm-hmm.
aren't very versatile.
Right. And then you get to, I'm just going to cover this very briefly. Then you get to this one area where you're given a bunch of batteries, and there's 3 different sections that you have to take batteries from one, go to the next one, put some batteries in it, go back to the original, take all the original out, recharge those original, bring them to the second puzzle, finish the second puzzle, go to the third puzzle, put some in the third puzzle, go back to the second puzzle, take the batteries from there, recharge them, put them in the third puzzle in the correct spot, and then you get the path. And I was
so over at this point.
At that point, I was so glad I used a guide, because I was like, there is no possible way I would have figured that out. And so I'm not ashamed of it. And the amount of fights that I did already, I thought was too many for this area. So I could only imagine if I was trying to figure that out and the frustration I would feel in not being able to do that. Because still, to this date, I do not know what the difference between all the different batteries are, because there's multiple different versions as well.
I don't either. I know that there's at some point it tells you that the batteries can't be next to each other, but I think that's the only hint that it gives you. Or at least
Right.
that's the only one I remember.
Mhm.
And I also remember placing a battery, and I have to scroll through the long text box that's like, you have 1 A battery left, 1 B battery
Right.
left, 1 C battery left.
Yeah.
And I always had more than it seemed like I needed, but I couldn't place those batteries
Yep.
in the slots that it said you could use them in.
Mhm.
Yep.
And so I'm looking at another screenshot, and it's a 3x4 grid, so it has 12 spots for batteries. And in this particular one, you only put 2 batteries. How are you supposed to know you only do 2 of them? There's 12 slots. Anyway, and eventually one of the very last ones you do is just a single battery, and there's only 1 spot. And so that one I could have figured out on my own, I think. But eventually we make our way through and unlock all these doors and or locks, and make our way through, and we finally get to the big door with the big electricity sign on it. We go inside, and there's the generator room, and that brings us to our fight with Elec Man, short for electric or electricity, I'm sure. Anyone want to go over how that fight went for them after everything we just went through?
I was saved and ready to go. I don't remember if I died or not, but I didn't rage on this fight. It wasn't terrible.
I don't remember this fight being all that bad. I'm pretty sure the enemies that we fought up until this point I had more trouble with, because I do
Right,
remember
yeah.
I died at one of these points and hadn't saved for a little while.
Oh,
But there is-
it's so sad. I'm sorry.
But there is the part where he, when you first fight him, he's invulnerable.
Yeah.
And
That
then-
was
did you already
noteworthy.
say that, John? I'm sorry.
I did not say that. I didn't think
And
about
then-
it.
And then this is kind of like
Oh.
the number man section where it goes, you have to go to LAN,
Mhm.
and LAN has to flip a switch to turn off the power that Elec
Yes.
Man is pulling from.
He casually gets electrocuted for you because the switch is just highly electrical.
Yeah,
he's
it
like,
just 2 hands jumps up and puts all his weight on it, and then gets electrocuted while he's suspended in the air, so it's not
As
going
you do.
anywhere.
And
But
then
he was fine after that, and then Elec Man was pushed over.
All right. So Elec Man, the only attack I'd say off of him or the effect that he does with his attacks. So if you get hit by his electric attacks, you're stunned, and that's very annoying. So he does a lightning attack, and then he also puts rods on your side of the map where if you walk between them, they have electrical currents that will zap you as well. But other than that, that fight's not too difficult if you can dodge those, and you can actually shoot the pylons to destroy them. So just
The
with your
electrical
regular
thing
attack.
is something that was really common in this area with just about every enemy, which is really annoying if you like to charge your buster, because it stopped you from charging your buster every time you
Right.
got zapped every 3 or 4 seconds.
And then that brings us to a cutscene. So Us deleting Elect Man ruins the plans of Chod and Proto Man. They were actually going to use him to determine the location of the WWW hideout. And so, in retaliation for that, Proto Man attempts to delete Mega Man. So that brings us to a second boss fight out of nowhere.
Back to back.
Yep, back to back.
No opportunity to save.
Yeah, unless you're using... got those quick saves going.
Yeah, and I would say, honestly, Proto Man's attacks aren't that difficult once you have seen them. What were you about to say, Kirk?
I was just going to say, I think it's a really good boss fight.
You
have to, like, slow down and figure it out, because most of the other bosses, it's basically just deal as much damage as fast as possible and dodge as best you can, but you'll probably not run out of health before they do. This is not that at all. You have to stop and intentionally recognize its patterns and dodge appropriately and then counterattack.
Right. One of the things that I implemented in this fight was he would charge a buster attack too, but you could see it on the character. So I was using a lot of sword-based attacks at this point. So I had those like queued up, or either that or the water or fire attacks, that start right in front of you. So whenever it started to show up on his character, he was charging a sword attack, I would go ahead and just click the button. When I saw it turn pink, he would teleport to me, and before he could swipe his sword, it would just hit him with my 140 damage attack. And lucky for me, it made the fight with him pretty trivial. So we really showed that police officer the correct way to fight. And I believe his ego gets bruised from that, because later on he's kind of sad. But anyway, that brings us to another cutscene of, I believe we turn on the generator and restore power. And then we go talk to our mom, and then we get another email from our dad. And that brings us to another cutscene with the WWW, talking about how they have acquired the electric super program. We've learned they're collecting the super programs. I believe there's 4 of them. And if I'm not mistaken, now they have 3 of them. So, yeah, at that point, even though we intervened, we weren't able to figure out where they're located, and they've now collected another super program, getting closer and closer to their plan fruition. So, given that, I believe we can go ahead and move forward, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Set.
So, So, again, it tells us that just sometime later, there's no specific dates involved here. We receive an email from our dad asking if he can have us check up on Police Officer Chod, because it's now our job to also provide psychological... we're now also psychologists, I guess is what I meant to say. Or
I love how you're referring to this 11-year-old as Police Officer Chod.
Well, he is. He's official net battler. That makes him the police officer of the net, right?
But we're on the mailing list too. Like, shouldn't we be?
We're not supposed to be. We're volunteers.
You're like the people who like
volunteer
radios to intercept police radio.
Volunteer 11-year-old police. So anyway, we get that email to check up on him. So we head to the government complex again to talk with him. You can optionally go fight Sharkman again to get his chip. I believe you can fight Woodman again if you want another chip, depending on how good you do. Those are completely optional. But we go in and we talk to... we go to Scilab. And we actually learn from a random scientist that Chod went to do an investigation in Dentown. So he's not even there. But you'd have to talk to a random NPC to determine that. Mm-hmm. And then when you get to Dentown, I believe you find Chod, and he explains there is a WWW member there somewhere hiding out, and he's trying to find them, and he's just basically running up and yelling at random people across in the town.
To be fair, I guess that's what you're supposed to be doing at this point.
Yeah,
I guess. Every time you're traveling between these places, you're starting at your house. You go to the train station, you get a ticket, you go to the government complex, you talk to a random dude, go back to the train station, get a ticket, go back to Dentown. find Chad. Chad tells you to go to wherever you're supposed to go to, and you're just heading back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah, we got a nice running simulator going on here.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
Right. So eventually, we figure out that he's trying to find a WWW member to get some, I guess, info from them on try to find where the base is.
Server address?
Yeah, server address, so they can connect to it online. And then I don't remember how we figured out, but basically we figure out that, hey, maybe we should go talk to the former terrorist that took over our school but now owns a chip shop, and you go talk to him, and he'll give you basically whatever memo or whatever you wanted to know.
Yeah.
And we find the entrance to the undernet, and this is where a lot stronger viruses show up, and you can really get annoyed or grind them out. I remember at one point I was running through this labyrinth of the net, and just this one group of this little marshmallow looking thing that jumps around the map, and then it turns into this giant weight that falls on your head, which just paired with the most awful program,
Guys.
and just this random fight just deleted me within 20 seconds. And I reloaded, and I was probably set back to when I just loaded in the internet or the net.
No.
And so I had to go run it all again, and I'd collected all these little gems that give you items or money, and I had to go back and do all that again, buy my HP power-ups and stuff that I bought from the vendors, and just do it all over again.
And the best part is that you got to do it all over again, and then you got to hit a dead end.
And
And
you
then
got
do it
lost
all over
again.
again later.
Yeah, I think it was this chapter where there were several points you had to travel way through the internet, and then they're like, all right, Mega Man, jack out. Let's go find somebody else, and you find somebody else, and you go all the way back through the internet, go to the next area, and it's like, all right, Mega Man, jack out. Let's do this again.
Yeah, once I did that, the first time, where reached the dead end and had to get out again, I was like, I'm going to find everything I need to find, and you can get the 3, because you need to find 3 ex-WWW members and get their codes to access the undernet. So I just went and found all 3 of them before ever having to go back, but it was still such a waste of time, because the net, again, it's a freaking maze, and it's a pain to get through and to do it over and over again.
I don't remember how you were supposed to find out who these people were. We got ex-terrorist substitute teacher. That one kind of makes sense as the guy who has the code for the WWW thing. And then you find out
and then another teacher.
Yeah, the teacher's twin sister in Denton.
You have the hint from Chad that it's a young woman is the only hint you have, and so
then
I guess you're supposed to think who's the only young woman NPC, and I was like, the antique store.
Yeah,
nope. It was the other one.
Nope, that's the one you battle.
Did you guys hit a wall with her name is, I don't know, Marie or Mary, or maybe that's her sister Yuri, one of the two.
Is Yuri? I don't remember.
Did you get stuck there?
Fighting her?
No, not fighting her. So you go there.
Finding her?
No.
I know what you mean.
You talk to Higsby, and he just gives you what you need. You talk to her, and she's like, I don't know if you're strong enough. I would be putting you in danger if I gave you this information. And the only way to get what you need from her is to have collected enough chips. And the only way to collect
60 of them.
Was it 60?
That's what this article says.
So the internet is terrible, because I saw 75, I saw 60, I saw 70, and I don't know, maybe it depends, or maybe I miscounted. But
maybe
when I finished, I counted that I had 65, and she let me through once I had 65. But I grinded for about an hour. I mean, I went to Higsby's shop, and I just dumped in, because I needed 25 chips.
That is surprising. Apparently, I had a lot more trouble in the beginning areas than you did, because I had the 60 whatever.
Well, I think I think what you guys described earlier was that if you perform very well in the combat, then you get the chips.
More chips. Yep.
I was loaded with cash because I performed horribly in all the combat, and so I just got cash from most of my encounters.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which
is just a spiral then, because if you don't get better chips, you're just going to keep doing worse. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a great system, huh? But I went to Higsby's, and I ended up just dumping about half of my chips into the machine where you trade 3 for 1,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually I was just getting nothing but duplicates. And so then I went to the
Yeah,
red
I had that
machine
problem
and
too.
did 10 for 1, and it took a while. I barely got what I needed, but
Mhm.
honestly, in the end, it was worth it. Because did you guys ever get the Gaia chip?
No.
Mm-mm.
So Gaia is a chip you can use. Do you know the enemies that are like stone statues and they
Yeah.
come to life and they hit their hammer and it sends like a
Mhm.
shockwave across all 3 tiles?
Mm-hmm.
That's Gaia,
Oh,
and you can
okay.
get a Gaia chip, and it does that. I ended up from the 10 Gacha machine. I ended up getting a Gaia level 3, which was
Ooh.
like
Max
the
power.
one of the rarest ones in the game, and so it did 160 damage to
All
every
rows.
single one of the tiles on the enemy
So you
side.
just crunk out those battles after that, getting an S
Yeah, it
every
was
time.
awesome. It was
I love,
super awesome.
Okay.
I
So
love how we took very
Mhm.
different approaches to this.
right, yeah.
Before we started finding the 3 memo people,
Mhm.
we had access to the I think the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, whatever areas of the internet.
A lot of them.
I was
Yeah.
looking at the guides and I was seeing all these shops in those areas that had like power ups and HP ups and stuff.
Yeah.
I just went into those areas and started grinding out enemies and grinding out money, and I started powering up just like my
There you
buster
go. Not a bad
almost
thing.
as I could. So I had all the chips and all the levels that I needed to go and get those memos from the people.
Yeah, that worked out for you because you are required to be level 30 for the other one to
Mhm.
give you the memo. Which it was so funny because it said that, and I was like, "There's levels in this." And so I went and looked at the page with the power ups, and I was like level 48, and I was like, "Well, apparently I'm doing pretty good if I'm already level 48." Either that, or
Yeah.
I'm doing terrible when it comes to random encounters. So, so I was glad
Yeah.
that I didn't have to go grind for that after already grinding out most of the game. So,
And then
yeah, any other comments? Go
Well,
ahead.
after the teacher, then you go find the old man who's been like, there's been one old man in the main town outside your house. I think it's might be the same guy. Who
I was wondering
like,
if it was the same one that you were
I
talking
think
about
it's supposed.
earlier.
I don't know because there's only like 3 NPCs besides main characters. But he's like, every time you talk to him, he's like, I'm not a senile old man. And then you go talk to him now, and he's like, yes, I used to be a terrorist. Here's my code so you can save the day. And I'm like, what's going on? Okay.
I would not have found this dude without the guide. I don't think I ever spoke to him before this point.
Yeah, I
Every
could
time
see that
he's-
being annoying. Yeah.
He's the one that talks to you and like explains like the name of the town and stuff. And he's like, see, I know things. And it's like, all right.
So yeah, once we have all the memos and we go to the undernet, we find the location of where it is, but we are stopped by the guardian of the www server, Bomb Man, who does not have a operator, I believe. It's just him, and that
Bomber
begins
Man.
that fight. So, any thoughts on the fight with Bomb Man?
He's Bomberman. He just
Yeah,
throws
don't-
bombs and they do Bomberman things.
Yeah, I was gonna say like you can shoot the bombs on his side, but mainly he just kicks them at you. But they're pretty easy to dodge, so I didn't really have any problems. And then his only other attack is the stealth mine, where it just randomly puts a mine on your side of the map. So like, it was a pretty uneventful fight, all things considered.
I had no problems with this guy at all.
Right.
Yeah. The worst part about him was at the end is when you beat him. He's like, "I'm a bomb. I'm going to self-destruct," and then he blows up, and then you have to explore the net more to get back to where you were later. That's
Yeah.
the worst part about the fight.
That is true. So after you get through that, there's a cutscene of him blowing up the portal there. So you leave and you end up going to your dad's laboratory to talk to him. And he basically just has a conversation with you very briefly about how did you find the web address of the www? You should just let us take care of it now. And then Lan's like, no, Dad, I will stop these terrorists. And then your dad's like, all right, I'll let you. If we figure it out, I'll send you the location. He's like, but just know you will have consequences for your actions if you don't stop the terrorists.
I thought this was so bizarre.
Yeah.
Dad like specifically asked you, is like, are you ready to take on the responsibility of saving the world and fighting these terrorists? And you're just like, yeah. And he's like,
yeah, definitely.
Sure.
That's good enough for me, son. What were you going to say, Kurt?
I was going to say, and at some point during all this, Mega Man, he might have done this before in the game and I just didn't notice, but he refers to Lan's father, and he just calls him Dad.
I hadn't noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And so
he does. He refers to Dad and Mom. He just says Dad and Mom. Yeah.
And I noticed that, and I just kind of stopped, and I was like, is that weird? Is that weird that this AI program? And, we'll talk about the ending, but at the time I was like, this is weird. I don't know.
Well, I mean, regardless of what happens later, we do know that Navi was made by Dad. Like,
sure. So it's like a
maybe
Pinocchio situation.
Right. And the other Navis could refer to their operators' parents as Mom and Dad too. We don't know. We don't really get much conversations with them when it's all said and done. They only email us about terrorism and kidnappings and
normal great things.
Right. Yeah. Just another Tuesday. So I believe that brings us to the end. And I could have been wrong when we last spoke about the super programs. I think they already have all 4 at this point.
Yeah.
So, and then finding their location was them getting ready to finalize their plans and combined them all for some purpose that we're not aware of, but ultimately to destroy the world or something. I don't remember. But they already have all 4 of the programs. I was mistaken. They have all 4 already, and that brings us to the last chapter of the game. So it starts with Lan getting an email from his dad saying that, hey, we found their base. It's somewhere in the mountains. But there's no real way to get there. So we leave our home and we search for how to get there. But before we leave, we see on the TV Dr. Wily. And he's telling everyone about his propaganda where he's explaining how he's going to hack into the satellites and use a rocket to control the network. And then we go on to eventually we find out when we go to the chip shop that the man behind the counter is gone. And on the counter is a note of some sort or something like that.
Metro Line Pass.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
So we take this pass.
Yeah.
So we take this pass to the station. We ask the 2 different employees there, "Hey, what is this?" And they're like, "You can't use that here."
It's funny because it specifically called it a WWW pass in your inventory. So I'm just imagining you go up to these station men, you're like, "Hey, can I go to this terrorist organization?" And they're like, "No, we're not going to let you do that. That'd be weird."
And then one of the staff in there actually tell you that they hear other trains or something pass by, which is weird because there's only one tunnel. And so they're wondering where those noises could come from. And so you go and explore wherever you think to explore, but, it would probably assume that it's somewhere in your town. So you just run around your town and just happen to click on the statue in your school. Definitely didn't follow a guide to find this.
Is that how you're supposed to do it? Is you just click on a ton of stuff? Like, is there any NPC that's like, sure does sound like there's a train by the school?
You do talk to an NPC, and they do say it's very loud near the school, but that's the only indication. And that school building inside is huge. So if you didn't happen to click the backside of the fountain, you would have been there clicking walls and stuff for a long time trying to find where it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous.
But ultimately, you find the secret entrances under the school fountain the whole time. And as you enter that, your friend, Mail, sees you walk in there. And, I believe you go down there, and it's just a darker version of the same train station. And you try to go use your ticket, and it's like, hey, this is invalid. Because it's old. It's expired, that's right.
One of either Mega Man or Lan is like, we probably shouldn't try to use this because, he just doesn't work for them anymore. And then the other one's like, no, just try it. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Turns out nothing bad happens.
Somehow. There's no defense mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think it says an alarm, something goes off, but nothing ever comes of that. So,
so you just kind of run away.
Yeah. So you just kind of leave, and you're like, maybe we should go talk to Dad about fixing this up. And that's exactly what it is. He's like, "Yep, here you go, kid. I fixed it for you." And he puts the right date on it. And I don't think there's anything that happens in between that, right? You just go meet your dad. Yeah. He fixes the date, and you run all the way back and do it again.
All the way back and do the exact same thing again. The alarm's gone. It just works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I don't know, man.
Now we've successfully infiltrated the terrorist organization's home base, and we begin finding our way through there. There's only one path. It's very linear. You open the door, and behind the door is the three people that gave you the web address notes.
The ex-terrorists.
Yep, the ex-members.
Kind of suspicious for ex-terrorists to be hanging out at a terrorist base, but maybe that's just...
They were tied up, you know?
So that's right.
You shave them, and then you continue forward, but all the doors are locked, and so you have to go into each door one at a time, go through the mazes, and find out where to go. And then at the end, there's always something that you can't fix, but luckily someone shows up to help you. All of your friends magically find passes to the terrorist organization as well.
Well, it's like, it is magic, I guess, but whenever you go down there the first time, Mail sees you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what's going on? What's he doing?
Yeah.
And I assumed that it was going to be like a damsel in distress scenario at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But instead, what she does is she rallies all of the friends you made throughout the adventure. So she gets Dex and Yai and Chad and Freud, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
And gets them to like help with each individual challenge. So I liked that.
Yeah.
I didn't think about how they got there, but I liked it.
They met up with Chad, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Chad probably can do whatever he wants.
Or maybe your dad made a copy and gave it to all your friends.
Very responsible. I mean, if you're endangering one fifth,
why not all of them?
That's already life in jail. So you might as well just send 5 or 6.
Right. So, but to go over the different locks on these doors, basically it's a rehash of the different puzzles we've had at this point. There's fire to extinguish in the first one. The next one is, I believe, the high or low with the passcodes for the doors.
Did you like these, John?
They were all right.
You just described, you're like, oh, these are just like rehashes of what we've already done. And in my notes, I have neat mini vignettes based off of the previous levels we've explored. I don't know. I thought I'm a sucker for like a
throwback.
Yeah, like my favorite game is Wind Waker. It was back there. And at the end of Wind Waker, like Ganon's castle was the same way in Ocarina of Time. It's like miniature versions of like puzzle rooms based off of the previous dungeons you've already done, and there's something satisfying because
I know how to do this.
It like brings the whole experience back together. You're like, I
guess that makes sense.
And then I did this, and I did this, and all these things are what brought me here, and now I'm ready to do the big final thing. And I thought that was kind of nice because otherwise it would have just felt like, all right, and here's another level that I'm just getting through. But it
guess
felt
that's
like
fair, yeah.
Like summative, I guess.
So at the end of each of these, we're not able to fix the issues with the door ourselves on all of them at the end, but luckily our friends show up respectively throughout each of the doors to help us out. And then I already mentioned the first 2, and then the next 2 were another set of ice level, as well as the red light or the orb that swaps the red and blue paths. Unfortunately, we do have to do the invisible paths again, but
that's more invisible paths.
But in between that very last one and
at least there was no batteries in that one.
Yeah. I was gonna say at least there's no batteries in this one. But before you get to the invisible path one, which I believe is the last one, you end up going to where all of the cutscenes for WWW took place, their lab, and you can see they're holding tanks for the programs where they combine them all together to make their ultimate program that's going to destroy everything. And you find the secret entrance is through a statue of Dr. Wily, and it's kind of funny. So again, another invisible puzzle. Does anyone else have anything to say about the lead up to what we're about to talk about?
No, I got words for what we're about to talk about.
All right, so at the very end of this, maze you're in again.
Oh wait, no, sorry, I do have something to say.
Go ahead.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Am I jumping the gun?
I have no idea.
There's about to be a boss, right?
Yes, but I was going to talk about something right before that.
Okay. Well, no. This is right. This is before that.
Okay.
So, Wily's last henchman that you haven't fought yet. His name is Yahoot.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in the room with the deaths where they've been having the meetings the whole time. And Wily's like, "You better stop them. Don't let me down."
Mm-hmm.
And then, but you get there and the room is empty.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Where is Yahoot? What did he do?
Yeah.
He should just be standing there and just beating down anybody that walks in the door." But instead, they just continue to let you just walk through the facility with no physical barriers at all.
Mm-hmm. The locked doors weren't enough.
Sure, he could have just been standing there and stopped this 11-year-old.
You know who's less equipped to stop a terrorist attack? Lan. Compared to Mega Man, Lan.
Yeah, exactly.
Punch him in the face and then you win. It's over.
Right.
Anyway, I'm sorry, John.
No, you're fine. There's a very important program right before you hit the very last section here. And it tells you, hey, the end is very near. You should consider saving. Mm-hmm. It's a very helpful advice because after that, I know I'm jumping ahead a little, but you literally cannot save the game. They have a disruptor that's stopping you from saving. So you have to do all these boss fights back to back to back without saving. Mm-hmm. Or you have to redo them all again. So, or have a quick save, for your official Nintendo hardware software. So that brings us to the operator that Kurt was just talking about and his Navi, which is Magic Man. And so Magic Man's special abilities here are he has a magic fire attack that shoots across the map. It's not that hard to dodge, but his main troubling factor here is that he summons waves of enemies to protect him. And how much I got messed up the first time. The first time he did a summon on my end, I got the floating head with the aura around it, and I just got destroyed. And the second time I did it, I got the easiest spawns in the world. And I had no trouble whatsoever. I got rid of him before he spawned the head I was having so much trouble with. But how did that fight go for both of you?
I had no trouble with this guy at all.
Oh my gosh.
I must have had easy spawns.
I was going to say, there are stuff that he spawns that are very easy to fight. So
yeah, I never saw the magic aura head dude when I fought him. Or the guy that summons the rain clouds, which are ones that I had trouble with all throughout the game.
I'm guessing, Kurt, you did not have the same enemies that we did.
I just wrote in all caps, Magic Man sucks on my notes. This truly was horrific for me. I feel like every time I fought him, he spawned the floating head things that I never really figured out how to beat in an efficient manner.
Should have upgraded Buster Man.
Yeah. That's where I went wrong the whole game. I eventually figured out that he could only summon a certain number of the little monsters at a time.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then I was like, so then eventually I fought him so many times, and I got to a point where I was like, I think I can just dodge these guys enough and focus all my attacks on Magic Man. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did, just stopped him from spawning anything too dangerous and just dodged. This was the hardest fight in the game for me.
That's fair. All right. So would you like to take it away for what happens after Magic Man?
Me?
Yeah, if you want. If not, I can.
Well, okay. So between Magic Man sucks, I have the twist at the end. Is there stuff that
that's it? No, that's next. Yeah, that's next.
All right. So they're talking for a little bit, and they're Mega Man's about to die or something, and then I just write down, is Mega Man.exe the spirit of Lan's older sibling that Hikari couldn't bear to lose? Is that where this is going? And then a couple minutes later, I typed in all caps, I was right.
So I'll dive into some detail on that there.
Go ahead, man.
So Magic Man magically gets some power, a burst of power from Dr. Wily and the life virus, and does grievously wound Mega Man. And so he gets downed on the ground. And so Lan's watching as potentially Mega Man is going to get deleted. And Proto Man shows up out of nowhere and kills Magic Man. And then it jumps to the room to show Lan standing there. And just out of nowhere, Chad is standing right next to him. It's never brought up before, but he's standing right next to him. He's like, "Oh, hey, I'm here." He then hands Lan a program called hub.bat, and you immediately get a phone call from your dad, who then explains how and why Mega Man was created. So
Hikari, the dad, was like, I'm going to create the best navies ever that have personal connections by using human DNA to create these digital avatars. And he was failing to do it constantly. And he realized that using the DNA, or the DNA that he was using was too different from the users, so it wouldn't work. It had to be the DNA that was identical or almost identical to the person, to the user, or it wouldn't be effective. And so it turns out that he had twins. Lan was one of the twins, and the other twin was Hub. And Hub was gonna die for one reason or another.
Did die.
And I mean, yeah, but I don't remember. Was he sick or did he get hurt? I don't remember the details.
I think he was just weak when he was born or something.
Oh, he was like baby. Okay.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Ooh, I know. I'll use my dying son's DNA to create a digital version of my dying son to be my living son's best friend." And
Mega Man knows this the whole time as well.
He's known this the entire time. And I'm just like, oh, that's why he calls him dad. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. And he's fine with it. He's not having an existential crisis. He's also only 11.
He's only 11.
At most. If we're assuming that Hub died when he was 0, then yes. Yeah. And then he says that the DNA that he used, because again, Hub and Lan are identical twins. He altered it slightly. It's 99.999% identical, but it's 0.001% different. And Mega Man and Lan have different eye colors, so I think that's what the 0.001% is. It's just the gene that determines eye color.
And the reason he did that is because if it's 100% identical, the operator and the Navi can get synchronized, so when one dies, the other would die.
No, not just dies, but like feel
the pain.
Oh, that's right.
So so he's like, son, you have to. This basically is what he said. Like, either you lose your brother forever, or you have to feel all the pain that your brother feels as he fights terrorists. I love you. Like, what's going on?
So Lan does not.
I don't want to lose my Tamagotchi.
Right.
So, like,
But is like, imagine if you found out your Tamagotchi. Like, no. Let's like, I never have a Tamagotchi. Nintendogs.
There you go. Your Nintendog.
Your Nintendog is starving right now. Everybody who had them. It's been 20 years. It's starving. It's laying there in the living room all by itself.
It's waiting for you to come home.
Now imagine that's your brother.
Literally your identical brother.
So I mean, Lan doesn't really have a choice here.
Right. Time to feel pain every time something happens now.
He's like, I should definitely do this. But then the solution after that should be, right, now Chad, go handle this. It should not be, Lan, you're the only one, 11-year-old who's going to feel all the pain of the supervisor's attacks that can destroy the world.
Like, Chad's like, that's rough.
Yeah, the world's about to be destroyed.
It just like it's most of this game is it's like a train that's just kind of going along, and all of a sudden it's like it does a ramp and a flip all of a sudden at the end. It's just so off the rails. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so anyway, you choose to do that, and then you can do some changes to your folder to make edits for the final fight that we're about to have, but you can't save, by normal means. But that leads to one of the final cutscenes where you get an explanation from Dr. Wily. The reason
Dr.
behind
Edgelord.
yes, his whole reasoning behind his plan, and that he was doing robotics, and Lan's grandfather was doing what is now known as the network and the net. And
research.
They could only fund one project, and they funded Lan's grandfather, not Dr. Wily. So he pulls a whole Meet the Robinsons and blames all of his life's woes on the grandfather instead of taking responsibility.
Wiley says, quote, "You'll never understand how I feel. Never."
Yeah.
He's like, I'm about to destroy the world also.
Yeah.
And also, I was like, and I looked it up, and Hikari is just Japanese for light.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Dr. Hikari is just Dr. Light, who is the scientist who creates Mega Man in all other versions of the Mega Man story. So, same concept here. They just changed the last name for reasons, I guess.
Makes sense.
Probably the Japanese.
That leads us to Lan sending Mega Man into the rocket, and we use our combined efforts to just walk one straight path. It's finally not a labyrinth, and you fight the mega program that is made from all the programs they've collected, and it's called the Life Virus, and that's your last boss fight of the main story. Any thoughts on this? Oh, go ahead, Kurt.
First try.
Oh, first try. I thought you meant 1 second. Okay, first try. All right. So, what about you, Joe?
Same. Fortunately, the guide told me to equip a lot of things that did more than 100 damage.
Right, and that's important because we've been getting these spam emails that an aura shows up around some enemies that if you don't hit the number on the aura or higher, the aura just negates all damage. This enemy has a 100 on their aura, and it quickly comes back. So you have to have a lot of attacks that you can use in quick succession to do damage. But all in all, its attacks are not that difficult to avoid. However, they do a lot of damage if you get hit. So try not to get hit because it does a lot of damage.
Mega Man also got powered up from the hub.bat, which I think maxed out his buster because your charge ability, and you're able to shoot a whole lot faster, and your charges a whole lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want, you could destroy the shield, go right up in front of the life virus, and just blast away.
Exactly.
Just what I ended up doing a lot.
There you go. Okay. So, no final thoughts on that boss?
It was a fine final boss.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what would have made it better. It was fine.
That's fair. So that brings us to the destruction of the base and the deletion of the virus. The deletion of the virus causes the whole entire WW base to self-destruct. So you and all your friends better get out of there pretty quick. And then you go ahead.
But they don't. Like, Wiley's like, no, my research, and goes down with the ship. And you and all your other 5th graders are like, guess we should leave. And they just walk at a normal pace, just out of the exploding room.
Yeah.
And then you have a big meetup right in front of your house at the very end of the game. And Kurt, you wanna top us off with any highlights you wrote down for that?
I just wrote the part I already complained about with the mail being weird. It's basically the mom and dad have like a sweet moment, and
because they're finally meeting up for the second time in the game.
Yeah. Male flirts with Lan. Lan is oblivious, and like
because he's 11.
Every single NPC in the entire game is just like, oh, Lan, and then it goes to credits, which I have comments about the credits.
Okay, what are your comments?
Unless someone else has comments about the final.
Oh, well, the very last thing is that to end the game, it literally just says your doghouse alarm goes off and Lan has to jack into it to deal with a potential virus, and then that's how the game ends.
It's like freeze frame, credits.
Yeah.
During the credits, there are like little scenes that are playing, which is every game should do this. By the way, this is just entertainment. Mm-hmm. But it implies a lot of things. Okay. So, first of all, I don't know if it's Yuri or Mary, the twin teachers, but Yai is like with one of them in like a home. So I think it's isn't. I think it's implied in the game that Yai lost her parents,
I
and so
don't know.
is it
Isn't she
implied
the one
that?
that lives in like the mansion? Because
Yeah,
there's no way
she's
she's with
rich,
one of
yeah.
the teachers.
Yeah, she's
Right,
rich,
right. She
yeah.
has a mansion. I think it's implied as someone that she like doesn't have like much family. I don't know how that
And they
works.
left her all
but
the money. Yeah,
I took that as them like adopting her. I don't know.
Interesting.
If y'all didn't think that, I probably just made that up.
I didn't think that, but it's interesting headcanon there.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe we should watch the cartoon.
did y'all talk to the NPCs? Did y'all talk to the NPCs in Dentown or whichever that it was like there's a mom that's looking for their daughter and there's a daughter that's
Yeah.
looking for their mom?
You
I
couldn't
didn't
fix it.
talk-
You couldn't fix
yeah.
it. In the credit scene, it shows Chad like reunite them, or he's there when they're
okay.
reunited, and then he just leaves and is like edgy by himself. So I'm like, okay, like is he an orphan? Is he like an orphan 11-year-old cop? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then the biggest mystery is very end of the credits, the last scene before it pulls up your like time and your scores. Is Lance just like chilling in his bedroom, and then Mega Man just walks in,
Yeah, I
Wait,
did
just
see
like-
that.
I didn't pay
physically.
attention to that.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did Mega Man just operate in the real world? Is all that Hikari and the mom had to do to have their other son back was change his eye color? Like, is that what had to happen? And they just chose to keep him a program for 11 years?
Maybe Lan is actually in a coma, and Hub really likes the Mega Man Battle Network cartoon, so he dresses up in the outfit.
So many
It's
questions, so little time.
So, like, I don't know. I haven't played. Like, John, you said you played a little bit of Battle Network 3. Do you remember, was Mega Man, like, in the real world, too?
No.
So what's
Which is
going on?
funny because if you look it up, they're supposed to be continuations of each other. They literally, yeah, it's a continuing story.
I
But
gotta Google
you're
it.
asking 11-year-old me. I was too busy fighting terrorists to remember how this game went.
Right.
So
Maybe that scene was a
Back in my
foreshadowing
military
of Mega Man
days,
Battle
you know.
Network 6.
What did you say, Joe? I'm sorry.
I said maybe that scene foreshadowed Mega Man Battle Network 6,
maybe.
and that's what we find out.
I'm curious if they carry that over because that just means that the other 5 games, Land just feels everything
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's the
that too.
implication.
because they're
That-
continuations
Sure.
of each other.
I'm sure at the beginning of Battle Network 2, your dad's like, "Oh, I figured out how
fixed
to
it, yeah.
remove 0.01%."
I just changed your ear color now, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see an answer to that scene anywhere on the internet. So I truly,
I know that
it's like they wrote an ending and then they were like, oh, this sold well, let's make a sequel, and
Right.
they completely ignored the ending that they
Yeah.
wrote so that for the convenience
Yeah.
of having a sequel.
I know
Maybe.
a great way to get our answer. Just let us know down in the comment section. Of course, after you've already
Please.
liked and subscribed.
I read all the comments. I want to know. I want to know.
Let us know in the comments if you know what's going on, because we would like to know. But I would say the best way for us to figure it out is to just play the second one, guys. And
You
I'm going to
can
use... Yeah,
Wait your turn. Wait your turn to pick.
yeah. I was going to say, and I'm going to use that as a segue to move forward a little bit here. I'm going to say that there are optional bosses at the end of the game. There is post-game that you can do. You can go collect all the chips. You can go fight the 3 secret bosses. Whatever you want to do. Or you can be done like we were. That is completely up to you. But that was the end of the game. That was the end of our time in Battle Network 1. So I guess I just want to jump into just overall thoughts, and whoever wants to go first. And, well, before you start, I'm just going to say, go ahead and tell us if you recommend the game or not, since we've hit that point in the video.
Go, Joe.
Not really. I give
Overall
it like
thoughts,
a 4 out of 10.
not really. Yeah, go ahead.
The actual loop of the game, like the battling itself, is pretty fun, but everything else about it is so long and monotonous, and the mazes are like so extreme for all the different like internet areas, and like some of the ice puzzles and the power plant levels and stuff. It's so long and tedious that it got to a point where it was kind of a slog to play through.
Completely understandable. So,
Yeah.
given that, would you recommend that game to anybody?
Just watch the cartoon.
All right. So we'll take that as a no. Kurt,
Yeah.
I'll let you go ahead and go next if you'd like.
So Joe's right. The combat loop of this game is very satisfying. It's a pretty interesting and competent deck builder, especially from the time period it comes from, before things like Slay the Spire came around to kind of help define how to make a good deck builder. It's really engaging. There's not a ton of combat that's like this even today. So all of that being said, you should Google and find out what the best Battle Network game is if you're interested at all, and just play that one instead. Looking online, most people are saying either 6 or 3 are the best ones.
Okay.
So
okay.
I would recommend that because I mean, you already watched this, so you heard the story. It's you're not, there's no nuggets in there that you're missing by not experiencing it yourself. The navigation is senseless and difficult, and there's just random moments in the story where you have to complete some tertiary objective that the game poorly communicates or doesn't communicate to you at all before you can go do the big obvious thing for no other reason than, I assume, just to pad the game's length, or just because the programmers thought it would be fun to do the other stuff. I don't know. I enjoyed my time with it, but there's so many problems that I could not tell someone to go play this unless they played another Battle Network game and just loved it.
Right.
Then it's like, yeah, if you like the series, then sure, play it. But otherwise, find another one and see if you like that one before you jump into this.
Okay. Which again goes into the age of the game. You know, like we had mentioned before, this game came out in 2001. So again, like we talked about with some of the older games, they do end up padding the game and making some things more difficult. Just so you get your money's worth out of it. That's the way I'm going to look at it anyway. But
what do you think, John?
Yeah, you guys are the only ones I would really recommend this game to. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone else, really. So it's definitely still on my to-play list, the rest of them, because I do enjoy these games. And I do like the improved mechanics that are added to these games and the additional features of them. They all have a similar play style, but there are improvements that are made along the way. So it's definitely something I want to continue doing. And I've enjoyed the combat, but I also have that nostalgia factor in there since I played this as a kid and had a lot of fun doing that. So that's probably jumped into my recommendation there, which sadly I couldn't recommend this to everyone, but I would recommend it to you guys because I know it might be something you'd like to do. Even though I agree, this one specifically with annoying mazes and stuff like that, and the lack of a capability of escaping the combats that pop up, I probably couldn't recommend it myself.
So we got to say this game does not get the Press A to Talk seal of approval. I think this is the first game that every member of the discussion has been like, no. I don't think any other game has done that yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Yeah, this is the first one, which is sad because I did have fun playing it, but just like both of you
terrible.
said, it's just the stuff in it makes it tedious.
Yeah.
So
there's just, because there's like 6 games and then like 3 to 5, I don't know how many like games in a sequel series that are probably better. It's just hard to recommend that you check this one out.
There is one note that I want to come all the way back to from the very beginning of the video, which is we mentioned there aren't many games that follow the style of this. There is one game that is very highly reviewed called One Step from Eden that was made by an indie developer and has the gameplay style of these Mega Man Battle Network games.
It's so funny you brought that up at the beginning of the video, Kurt, where you were like, indie games could really take this.
Yeah, it's also a roguelike, and it also has a sequel that came out this year, 2024.
Wow. Okay.
This looks really cool. If you're interested in this at all, go play this game. That's
and what's the name of that game for everybody?
It's called One Step from Eden.
There you go. Okay.
And if you're an indie developer, you can also make one, and you can make one that's not a roguelike, so that I'll play it too. Because it's just not my genre, but it looks really good. I still might check it out.
Right. Okay.
Sweet. Thanks, Joe.
One thing I want to mention is that actually the series they started after Mega Man Battle Network, it was called Star Force series. That was the sub-series we talked about at the beginning of the video. They actually canceled the 4th one for that game because the remake of this game did not sell as much as they thought, so they canceled the development of the 4th one for that series because their remake didn't sell well. So
They tried to remake a bad game to make easy money, and yeah, that sucks.
So
That's a shame.
But anyway, it's just something I wanted to point out since I also found that when I was looking into the game. But anyway, any final thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, before you wrap up, I just want to throw out, because Mega Man fans are very passionate at times. If you love this game, if this is your childhood, we are not saying that you are wrong. Please enjoy what you want to enjoy. I like a lot of games that most people would not consider good. So please don't take this as an attack on the Mega Man fandom, because
And just a reminder, just a reminder, I didn't recommend this to people, but I'm gonna go play through the rest of them because I enjoy these games. But so that's
John,
something to keep in mind.
If you pick this for the next Backlog crew, I will happily play through Battle Network 2 with you. I'll play the whole series.
Yeah, all right, I'll keep that in mind.
But, yeah.
I can't play 3 though in Backlog Crew because that would break the spirit of what we're doing because I've already played that one.
I think if we're going for the series completion, you're dragging us through it with you. Yeah, that might be okay.
You heard the term there, folks. Dragging us through it too.
Are you really going to drag us through a 6-game series?
Maybe they get better.
Only one way to find out.
3's the best one, so I don't want to stick 3.
Yeah, and 6. So
and 6,
anyway,
yeah, we got to make it to the end.
Yeah. Any final thoughts here from everybody here?
Mega Man is cool.
There you go.
Yeah, I liked the art style of Mega Man in the series a lot.
Oh, the sprite work in this. Yeah, we can talk about the sprite work. Sprite work in this is fantastic. Some of the best Game Boy Advance sprite work.
Yeah, and the music was really good too.
Yeah. Cool designs. All the enemies were very interesting and memorable.
All right.
So there's a lot of good stuff.
Just overall, then I'll just cover it really quick. We like the art design. We like the music. We like the character design, right? The Navis. All right. Did we like the combat system?
Combat.
Okay. And then we get to the things we didn't like. Did we like the mazes?
No.
The level design was not good.
Did you like the puzzles?
Really bad. No.
Some of the puzzles were fine. Some of them were very bad.
And then did we like the dialogue overall and the story?
Dialogue, yes. Story, no.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I agree with that.
Okay, yeah, I'm in agreement with everything we said here, so I hope that clears up everything that we've talked about here so far. So, one more time, final thoughts?
Go play...
Those were my final thoughts.
Perfect.
Go play the game that Joe said the name of that I forgot already.
One step from Eden.
There
you, Joe.
So, given that, for one last time, we're going to battle routine set and execute. So, everyone, have a good night.
See ya.
Thanks for watching.